Gentlemen, it is with pride and delight I wish to inform you all that the NAFO Even Rounder Table podcast is now officially Ukrainian propaganda! That's right, we are now officially partnered with U24 Media. But what is U24 Media? U24 Media is an English-speaking Ukrainian media organization set up by the Ukrainian government to keep those in English-speaking territories up to date with the latest developments in the Ukrainian war. They have a highly underappreciated YouTube channel which produces some very high-quality videos, giving you unprecedented access to the men, the women, and the massive amounts of heavy ordnance currently being used on Ukrainian lines, as well as updates on the counter-offensive, rescue efforts, and the politics behind everything. Yes, finally, you don't need to get all your information from some random idiot on Twitter. U24 Media. They didn't pay me a dime for this, but they did say if I can get enough people to subscribe to their YouTube channel, we might be able to get Gonzalo Rio's interrogation tapes made public, and that would be funny. Also, it annoys the hell out of the Vatniks, and I'll do anything just to piss them off, because it's funny. I'm Laserpig, I'm drunk, check out my merch store. All the profits go to charity. I'm a bit sick right now, so video's a bit delayed. I'm sorry, here's a podcast. Ah! Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Are you trying to host again?
Now we're...
Who's going to host this time?
No! We have been over this. This is my show. I'm the one who's hosting. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the NAFO Roundtable episode 2. We have a guest for the first time ever. Gentlemen and ladies and non-binary bitches, hoes, whatever I'm trying to say. I don't fucking care. We have a guest for the first time. We're now a legitimate podcast. We have guests now.
Yeah, we've got a guest.
He is here.
He is our guest.
You harassed him for months. You harassed me for several hours. And now he is finally here. Everyone's favorite, furiously bisexual Captain Hook lookalike runner-up, Dylan Burns. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here. I'm happy that I conceded to the harassment. I hope it encourages more harassment in the future, and everybody learns the lesson that harassment works every time.
Great.
Just harass me, just harass Laserpig, and eventually you'll get whatever you want.
Sounds like my teenage dating life. God damn.
Captain Hook lookalike. I haven't heard that before. I like that. I like that one.
It's just the hair. Every time I see you, I just think, stage play of Captain Hook. Would you do me a favor? Would you just lean into the microphone and just go, "I'll get you next time, Peter Pan."
I'll do my best. I'll do my best. Yeah. I'll get you next time, Peter Pan.
You got to really emphasize the P. You got
Peter Pan.
Like really wind up. Like imagine your Malfoy just winding up to say Potter.
Peter Pan.
That's like Peter Pan.
Peter Pan. Okay.
Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. All right.
I'm gonna confuse my roommates so much.
Fuck your roommate.
Hey, you came here for a podcast, and now we're giving you voice acting lessons. It's great.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be doing a podcast on Ukraine. Just give me some time." Peter Pan.
Yeah, that's fine.
So,
God, no, I won't make that joke. I already got in trouble on Twitter.
Don't you fucking dare!
No. Hey, we can't say the F word, Max.
I don't give a shit.
We can't say
what are they gonna do?
We'll get in trouble.
What?
We'll get in trouble again.
Gone. It's
Remember,
the new guy who's...
No, it's the new guy. But you see, like I got demonetized on the Parade podcast because we kept saying the F word, and Daddy YouTube didn't like it, so now we have to behave. Yeah,
Wow.
You see, there you go, right?
We're watching
Falcon,
a military
well
parade. We're watching a grown man and a fucking dictator of one of the largest countries on earth have a mental and physical breakdown in front of millions of people as one tank slowly drives past them. The pride of Russia.
I mean, look, we all know that the real hero of that whole day was Potato Man. What a Chad.
Yeah.
Standing out there like the lone watcher on the wall. The man ready for anything. Absolutely anything. Absolutely anything. Dude, that's actually a good topic to open up on.
What, is he still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive. Potato Man is still alive, despite reports to the contrary that something was going down.
Now, you say that. Has anyone actually seen him?
You have to Google
See,
that one.
that's
right
the
quick.
big kicker right there.
Ever since he got that massive reform, you know, he made his career. He made his career in the post-Soviet world by having his photo taken holding a pair of carrots, and now he is the last dictator in Europe, or at least he supposedly was. And then Putin declared himself one. So,
did you hear the statement he released after there was all the rumors about him being dead?
No, do tell.
I actually have it pulled up here because I remember it because it floored me when I read it. It made me laugh so hard.
Okay.
I'm not.
Hey! No, we're doing voice acting lessons here. He's doing his voice.
I don't know his voice. I can't. Dude, I don't
do
know,
the
I can't do his
shittiest
voice.
Slav accent, like the shittiest Boris accent you can.
Come
Like,
on.
Oh my god!
Do it.
If I do it bad enough, I'm gonna get the SBU is gonna deport me.
I don't think the SBU are going to make fun of you for, or going to make fun of you and deport you for making fun of Lukashenko. So I think you're fine.
Okay. I'm not going to die yet, friends. You're going to have to put up with me for a very long time.
Is that it?
I'm not going to die yet. I like that quote. I'm not dead yet. Lukashenko,
That's
president of Belarus.
That is, you know what? That deserves its own inspirational poster. Can you imagine that?
I wear that on a T-shirt.
Yeah, like the great Soviet eras of times past, you know, not one step back, comrades. You know, all these heroic speeches. I am not dead yet. Things are going well. I mean, that just about sums up the entire special military operation for 90% of its participants. I'm not dead yet. Fucking sick. Oh no, I've said the. Where's the hang on.
I'll filter it. Don't worry.
I have like a. You hear this? You hear this? Do you hear that? No, that is me putting a 10-cent piece in the swear jar because that's what I got here. Like oh no, I gotta put it in the swear jar. But
I don't have one of those. I'd bankrupt myself within an hour.
No, it's a savings. It's a savings method.
this is what YouTube has done to us. Or maybe I'm just being paranoid because it just every time I've been demonetized in recent times, it's also you said the bad word.
Yeah, we're talking about a global conflict and horrible situations where, you know, lives are at stake, and we get demonetized because we say, you know,
Naughty words. Yeah.
I got demonetized. The video I did on French tanks got demonetized several times, and I had to appeal to YouTube, eventually over Twitter, to get it fixed. Because I showed a picture of some ruined buildings, and YouTube considered that violent sexual imagery. The ruined buildings I showed were from fucking World War I. I'm a history channel.
Those buildings have since been rebuilt. They're right there. You can visit them. Oh, God. Oh, no. But no, actually, another thing, I can't talk about YouTube anymore. I'm not allowed. I got called out in one of my comment sections that I talk about being on YouTube too much, even though it's literally all of our jobs. But I talk about it too much, so no, we have to talk about the war in Ukraine. And we were actually having a discussion about this before, about how 3 members of this podcast, well, I'd say 2, because Falcon is looking pretty svelte these days. He's trying hard. He's our resident femboy and our artist.
Well, I wouldn't say femboy, but you know, I've got a slimmer belly, you know.
Come on, people, you're a femboy, and not only that, there is literally an entire subcadre of our fan base who are constantly pestering you in your own Discord to make Rule 34 out of yourself.
Yes, I know. It's
and so, you know, like,
but what, like, are you going to do it?
Are you going to do it? That's the question.
No, but I'm not stopping other people from doing it.
Oh, you heard it here, ladies and gentlemen, and variations thereupon. You can make Rule 34 out of Falcon.
Yeah, the irony is that you can't post it in my Discord because I have a no not safe for work rule. So.
Oh, come on! You don't have an NSFW weak.
Post it in Laserpigs.
No, I got rid of that.
He got rid of his. You see, there's the duality of man right there, because, you know, like,
everybody wants the forbidden fruit.
I can't have one. I cannot have a not safe for work in my community. I'm too scared. The thing is, it's not that I think it would be too harmful or anything to my community or whatever. I'm just scared to look at what my community jerks off to. I don't want to know. That's a scary thing to know about another person.
It's very scary because now I know, and that's the reason why I no longer have one. Because everyone was insistent, absolutely insistent, on posting Rule 34 of girls in Panzer. Those are school children.
That's not very cash money.
Those are school children. Stop sexualizing Japanese school children, you bunch of pervs. Guys, a serious topic for discussion. Are the straights okay?
No.
No.
As the resident straight, and even then that's a tenuous proposition in recent times.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, it's weird. I have this sort of policy, right? Where in the anime sphere, as a matter of principle, it's always a case of who the design, or rather how the design is put forward, rather than the actual design itself. You see, the thing is, on the one hand, you'll get some of the characters from Girls in Panzer, like Darjeeling or Maho, who are the senior year students who are going to university soon, and they're women, they're grown-ups, right? They look like grown-ups, they're drawn like grown-ups, etc., right? And then you'll get people who will post Rule 34 of, like, the first years, or Rule 34 of a girl from, I don't know, Blood Sea or something like that, where they're like, she looks 8 years old, but she's actually a 400-year-old vampire, so it's fine. No. If your character is designed to look like an adult, Rule 34 is fine. If your character is designed to not look like an adult, then it's not fine. It's CP, and that needs to be stopped immediately. And that's why there are rules against that. And that's why I banned the loli tag. And anyone who gets caught using the loli tag in my fucking Discord or in any other area I'm in charge of gets insta-banned with no warning. Like, if you're going to be a creep, guess what happens?
I am so glad I just have the no not safe for work rule, because it simplifies everything.
It saves a lot of hassle. Thankfully, because of my draconian laws, mine is pretty tame, because I had to ban destroyers, but most of my Azure Lane fans are they're part of the battleship appreciators, if you know what I mean. Like they have excellent turrets, as it were. So, you know, it's not much of a problem, but it can get out of control sometimes.
I live in a world where, like, people always judge me as being like a weird perv or part of a pervy society because I'm gay. And yet you live in a world where a group of perfectly fine, like, there's nothing mentally wrong with these people, straight man, mostly white, got together and decided, you know what a battleship needs? Tits.
Big fucking tits.
Big fucking titties.
Well, to be fair,
big titties. I would lick long legs, big titties, put a school outfit on that. Perfect. Now make that an anime.
So hold on a second. What have we always called ships in the Western world? She.
That's my point. And that's my argument to everyone else. Because people act like this is a new thing. It's not. Because if you, like, everyone's like, why have you turned tank girls or battleship girls? Why are you anime-fying, you know, battleships and tanks and planes and all that sort of thing? And I'm like, you disgusting perverts and all that sort of thing. And then I have got an entire collection of photos of nose art. And you'll have, like, a literal naked cartoon woman on the front of a B-17, and it will be called Bomb Run Baby. And these are the parents of the same boomers having a whinge. Your parents put waifus on their bomber to kill Nazis, right? Like, quite frankly, that is A, based as fuck, and B, something they did. So, like, I mean, the user's handbook, the manual for the Tiger, has naked cartoon women drawn in it to make sure people did the maintenance on that heap of shit of a tank.
Yeah, but they also put cocaine in the chocolate, so, you know.
Again, you keep saying based things, and like you say like perverted.
You know
is
what? You know what I'm going to
perfectly
do? I'm going to write to the government, because in this age of wokeness, where everyone's trying to virtue signal to prove that they're not racist and whatever, how much would you be willing to bet that I could get the Royal Navy to trans the gender of one of the ships?
You know what? That would be a fun project. I think we should totally
I'd
go
get
for it.
behind that. I'd sign that petition.
Petition.
Even better, guys.
I'd sign the position of the petition in which we choose the position, if you know what I mean.
So Russian ships are referred to as he. So we get one of them, and then we recommission it as a she.
We just raise the Moskva, do we?
Oh boy!
Raise the Moskva and turn it into a she.
Yeah,
Okay,
screw it. I'll do it. Let's go on. We'll raise the Moskva, and I will weld a giant pair of titties to the front of it.
This is a fantastic idea.
This is
Oh, that's right. Dylan's here too. Hey,
welcome,
Dylan,
welcome to the podcast, Dylan. How are you? Nice to see you.
I'm happy to be here. I can't wait to leave. Hey, what'd you do yesterday? Oh, I was on a Ukraine podcast. What'd you talk about? Well, we were talking about Lolly. And, you know.
That's what happens when you have two anime-adjacent YouTubers in the same freaking discussion. It's like, all right, now we need to set the ground rules.
How do you do the time? I cannot just imagine whoever does the timestamps for this. It's like Lukashenko, Belarus, Lolly, titties on a battleship.
Raise the Moskva and turn it transgender. Actually, you know what? That is a legitimately funny. Propaganda position to hold, Laserpig. Actually, because we all know what Putin's position on the LGBT community is.
Yeah.
So
I'm serious. I will do this. If I can get enough money together, enough funds, I will personally raise the Moskva. I will weld giant titties to it. I will paint it in the trans colors, and I will tow it to Kyiv.
You know, isn't it technically a Ukrainian cultural heritage site now?
Yeah, actually, that's a good
but
point.
there can be a Ukrainian cultural heritage site with a swing park and a McDonald's and a drive-through, and you can sit on.
Well, it can't have a McDonald's, remember? Because I mean, Dylan might be someone who's more qualified to talk about this, but you know, we can't. We have to stop all aid to Ukraine because the McDonald's in Kyiv is open.
Yes.
How is the Macca's in Kyiv, by the way, Dylan? You've probably, I would assume you've eaten there.
Well, all of the javelins actually went to the McDonald's corporation, and that's why it's running so effectively. They're specifically being used to protect all the McDonald's across the country. But honestly, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I'm a spoiled fat American. But the McDonald's in Ukraine to me tastes worse than the McDonald's in the United States. I think it's just because they took out all the stuff that'll kill you. I don't know what else it could be.
I think that's probably the same here because I used to work at Macca's down here, and the thing is, I've looked at what's in American Macca's, and I'm like, ooh.
Fuck yeah, bro.
Ooh. Like, you know, I find it funny that the same conservachuds whinging about microplastics and the world government order killing us are the same people who'll eat at Macca's, and I'm like, bruh. I don't even, like, you can, like, I've seen some guys in the US, like, buy cheeseburgers in bulk and then like keep them in the fridge for a week and like
oh my
them.
God, I've seen that too. That's horrendous. Those people shouldn't be able to vote, man.
But the thing is they can do it and it legitimately works, right? Which makes me wonder.
I don't trust it, man. I don't trust those people.
No.
Hey, here's my stance on fast food.
Oh, Falcon. Oh, Falcon. Falcon, come back to us. Oh, shit. Wendy's got to him first.
Yeah.
Crap.
Got him.
Oh, Wendy's got him. Oh, no. You know what's not
a non-Wendy's approved statement.
This is a non-Wendy's approved statement. Oh, there we go.
Oh, he's back.
Okay.
I'm back. Oh, did I disconnect for a second? My bad.
Yeah, you did. You did.
So, no, what I said was, if I'm not feeling spasms in my chest, then it's not good fast food.
Yeah, actually.
True.
Actually, that is true, yeah. Speaking as a Scotsman, you know, because fast food in this country is wildly different. I mean, we do have Burger King, McDonald's, KFC, that kind of shit. We have one Taco Bell, which is absolutely disgusting, and I hate it. But fast food in this country is literally just like, there'll be like a shop front, which is clean-ish, and you go in, and there's just a guy with like a meat skewer and a grill, and he's just doing something with that meat, and you go in and say, "Can I get some meat?" And he'll go, "Yeah," and he'll just give you meat in a box.
That sounds amazing.
It's just a skewer with meat, and it's great.
The less I know about what I'm putting in my body, the better.
That's the Eros.
Wait, Laserpig. Wait, did you say you didn't like Taco Bell?
I don't like the Taco Bell in this country, no.
Okay. Well, I don't know if it's different than American Taco Bell, which, as we know, is top tier Mexican cuisine.
Oh,
as
fuck off,
everybody
Dylan.
from Mexico
God
would
damn
affirm.
it, Dylan.
Every single Mexican would affirm that. As number 1 American Mexican restaurant in the United States. But when my mother was pregnant with me, and this is something my father tells me to this day, and he affirms that's 100% true, is that she would wake him up in the middle of the night and make him go get Taco Bell. And this only happened when she was pregnant with me. Before, she did not have Taco Bell cravings. And then I was born, and the entirety of my childhood to this day, I've loved Taco Bell. Like, anytime I have an opportunity to go, I go to Taco Bell. I was groomed in the womb to like Taco Bell, man. I love it.
So instead of the Binley Mega Chippy, this episode we're all at Taco Bell.
Okay, yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're at the
Yes.
NAFO Maid Cafe and Taco Bell. Yeah, that's it. Because you have Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, right? Now the Maid Cafe, we have a Taco Bell Maid Cafe. How about that?
I'd go to that.
Yeah, I'd go to that.
I mean, if a maid cafe opens up in this country, I will be the first person to put in an application form. And it'll just you'll go in, and it'll just be me in a maid outfit. Hey, all, welcome to Maid Cafe. My name's Piggy Boy, and I'll take your order.
Oh God! Actually, you know what?
Please.
I met an idol from Scotland. Like I shit
God.
you not. She's really great. She's really great. She tries her best, and she did work in the Maid Cafe at the anime convention in Sheffield, I think.
Oh,
And it was actually like, I'm like, I gotta respect the hustle, because idol life is rough, freaking rough, dude. But like, so it's not completely out of the question, LP. If you want to work at a maid cafe, conventions hold them. I can find you a job. All we need is a dress.
I'm genuinely tempted. Do I have to go to Sheffield though? Because Sheffield is a fucking hole.
Maybe.
I think we really do need to have a NAFO podcast meetup though at some point. Like all of us get together and
as I said, we were supposed to go to Lithuania, right?
I can't go to Lithuania right now.
I can't go to Lithuania right now either. I'd love to though.
I could go.
You could be our PR representative.
I might go to Lithuania and I'll just be like Team fucking Aerogavin. Just sit there in front of the NATO conference and just go, so, it's a tank, but it flies. And also you can parachute at the back. And to defend itself against MiG-29s and whatever, it has these 2 AIM-9s on the side. And then when it lands, it detaches the wings and just becomes a normal tank. It's genius.
And it's only got 1 turboprop engine, even though the thing is a full battle-loaded M113.
An electric powered turboprop. And we all know what happens to lithium ion when it gets struck by something sharp, like falling out of an airplane or something.
The
right?
Aerogavin is a victim of the woke military because it deploys to combat and the entire thing is just solar panels. Doesn't have reactive armor, it's just solar panels.
Mike, if you're listening to this, we love you. We'd love to have you on someday.
We would, actually.
Hi, Mike.
We'd genuinely love to have you on.
That would be pretty fun.
I really want to hear about the what was it, like the Black Eagle Mark II that he designed, with 11 crew, like the size of 5 buses welded together.
And that wasn't him. That was Blacktail.
Oh, was that Black? Oh, that was Blacktail, wasn't it?
Don't get the genius of Mike Sparks mixed up with the fucking depravity of Blacktail. Blacktail is just a weakling 40-year-old furry who just draws stupid military stuff on his fucking Furfinity website, whatever the fuck it's called. Mike Sparks has actually served his country with honors. I'll have you know.
That makes sense. That makes sense. The Aerogavin is evidence of his prowess. I'm honest to God, I would actually give one of my kidneys to see a prototype of the Aerogavan in like testing and service. Like,
I have mentioned that I've spoken to Mike Sparks on several occasions. He is looking to do because he's done a demonstration before outside Fort Bragg where he demonstrated a parachuting bicycle for parachuters. You jump out the plane, you land. What you're going to do? Run across the field? No, bicycle. So he had that, and he had a gun shield as well. So it was like a sort of Kevlar disc that was attached to his gun, protecting him from bullets when he was taking cover. He did these just demonstrations out of Fort Bragg. He wants to do another demonstration, and he believes he can create a working Aerogavan.
Where do I sign up?
Yeah, where do I sign up? Like, I'm in. Say no more.
I'm in.
Like,
I'm all there.
You know what I really wanted to see though? Like, I really wanted to see back in the old days. I think it was the Italian army, or was it the French? No, I think it might have been the French. You remember the Vespa with the recoilless rifle strapped to it?
Yes, I do.
What? You don't know about this?
You don't know about the recoilless rifle Vespa? Oh God,
that sounds amazing.
It's one of the greatest things ever. We have a guest, by the way.
I was gonna say, poor Dylan is here. We dragged him in. He's in a fucking war zone right now, and we're just talking shit about like random military technology.
So what do you think about
the
that?
Aerogap? It sounds cool, man. Like, yeah, super tank. I personally, I would design Optimus Prime and make him real if I was in the Pentagon.
Oh yeah, well,
please.
How do you know that Optimus isn't already in the Pentagon, Dylan?
That's a good point. With all these new UFO reports, you never know what it could be.
Megatron. No, hang on. The thing is, we'll summon Min if we do that. No, the thing is,
we will.
With the Vespa, battle Vespas to Ukraine. Actually, that is something I could get behind. With the new counterattack that's supposedly happening, that's how they exploit the breakthrough, the combat Vespa. Like, straight in. Mariupol, here we come.
What do they hook to it? What do they hook up to the Vespa to make it a battle Vespa?
What was it? Was it the it was the 80mm recoilless rifle, wasn't it? The NATO one. The same one that the Ontos had.
Oh yeah, that would have been I think it was a 90.
Yeah, cuz drop it in the old Maid Cafe Discord that we have now. LP. That's right. God. NAFO headquarters is a maid cafe. We weren't joking.
God, we are now, aren't we? Fine, I'll look it up. Just for you.
We're affiliated with official, media now. Like, we are. We are media. Serious.
Oh, yeah.
Official media.
We are affiliated with official media.
I feel legitimate now. It feels great.
Yeah, we're so legit. As I said, I'm still getting over the fact that I was on Polish TV. They didn't tell me they were going to put me on Polish TV. They just sort of did it. And I was like, okay. They didn't even get an email. They just credited me and played my video on Polish television. And I was like, wow, that is a bit wild. But in all seriousness, we should, by the time this video comes out, most of this information will be old news and out of date, so I feel safe in discussing it reasonably. Stuff is, in fact, going down in Ukraine, isn't it, Dylan? At least from what you can see down there.
Yeah, stuff is definitely going down. Everything's still extremely blurry. We don't know exactly what's going on. But what appears to be happening, and this is what we can't talk about because the press, of course, is already talking about it endlessly. If you look at any of the Russian military telegrams, they're all dooming out, but they're saying it's almost like movie quotes the way they're dooming out. Like, they're saying it has begun, and like all of them have gotten super dramatic about it, for good reason. I think they should be worried. But the Ukrainians seem to be engaging in probing operations. We see a gigantic uptick in artillery strikes, rocket strikes, possible Storm Shadow strikes in Luhansk and other areas behind the line. As well as what seem to be the first armored pushes by the Ukrainian military, all still probing. We still haven't seen like any big main attack. The Shoigu, though, has already announced. So everybody out there that's worried about, the brave Russian military, they've already announced that they've defeated it. They've killed 1,500 Ukrainian soldiers, 150 armored personnel carriers, 30 tanks. So it's already done. They've already defeated it. So nobody needs to worry. It's all over.
Okay, good.
Over.
Okay, good. That's fine.
Okay, well done,
This is the last episode of NAFO podcast.
Yeah, that's it. The war's over. The Russians win. Guess we gotta pack up and go home now. I mean, Shoigy's got it all under control. I mean, he's already withdrawn from Bakhmut. That's the interesting thing. I wasn't expecting the Ukrainians to be so aggressive in their opening moves, as it were, because we have seen the first battlefield losses of the Leopard 2.
We did.
Two,
Like,
two or three.
unironically?
I think it's one of the Danish ones. Non-Credible Defense held a funeral for it.
Yeah, unironically,
rip.
yeah. So we've seen 2 Leopard 2s. One of them was knocked out, had its track knocked out by a mine or artillery, it looks like.
I'm thinking it's artillery. It's surrounded by Bradleys. There's about 3 Bradleys and a couple of BMPs. They're all got their tracks disabled, which they're saying
Mines,
this
artillery.
was potentially drones that were doing it. I'm not entirely sure. I think it was artillery.
But they're in Ukrainian-controlled territory, those wrecks at the moment, so they're going to be recovered and restored.
They can be recovered very easily. The one that was actually knocked out, I'm not quite sure what knocked it out. I'd be interested to learn what. I mean, in fairness, we were all prepared for this. We all knew, okay, like Western tanks and everything. Like, I love the Challenger 2, but I've come to terms with the fact that at some point I'm going to see one on fire. I'm going to see one completely destroyed, unrecoverable. And that's fine. I've come to accept that that is just going to happen. These tanks are not invincible. We've been saying this since day one. But at the same time, you look at...
Crew's okay.
Yeah, you look at it, the blowout panels that got struck in the side by something. It got hit in the ammunition, and the ammunition exploded. The blowout panels worked, and the crew escaped.
Yeah.
Can you say the same for anyone who has been in a T-17 when T-17?
T-17,
That's a stag hound.
That's a
we
stag
haven't
hound.
used those in a long time. I mean,
Can you say the same for anyone in a T-72 when that's been hit with the ammunition?
Oh, they injected in the turret. It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, well, every time a T-72 gets hit, I am restored a little bit in my faith for the Soyuz program. But besides
Jesus.
that, oh yeah, forever me getting cancelled for my dark humor. But I'm constantly getting cancelled for my dark humor. But honestly, that's the one thing about this that people like. The Vatniks have been screaming from the high heavens, "Oh, look at the NATO super weapons getting destroyed!" During the Turkish operations, because I believe the Turks operated Leopard 2s.
They did, and
During
they lost several of them.
During Turkish operations in Kurdistan, when they moved on the YPG, after Senor El Trumpo, convict-in-chief, abandoned the Kurds to their fate, the Kurds knocked out several Leopard 2s, like, within the first week or so of the operations conducted by Turkey. And even, like, some of the more hardier tanks that we've seen, during a, well, technically not PLO, but during a PLO operation with Hamas and the Israelis went to take them down, they went into a complex ambush with their Merkavas, and Merkavas got taken down by ATGMs. Like, it's called anti-tank guided missile. The anti-tank part is very important in that definition here. What matters is the fact that you've got a highly trained crew of individuals inside said vehicle who are irreplaceable. We can get a new Leopard from Germany. We can get one. Hell, we can get 10. We can get 20. We can get that. Like, Canada has a bunch of old ones, right? There's all these people who are saying, "Oh, NATO can't replace their losses." Bitch, you want to see what the Western military-industrial complex can do? Trust me. As a filthy, liberal, anarcho-kitty, you know, who supposedly stands rigid against American imperialism, trust me, when the West gets serious about making guns, God help anyone. Ever. You have no idea the amount of firepower that Ukraine can eventually have if we decide to get serious. And if losses like this keep happening, which they will get replacements.
You'll see sewing machine companies making fucking pistols again, man.
Yeah, they will get replacements.
Amazing.
What matters is the replacements will be for the tank crew, who are very much alive. Ukrainian news confirmed that the crew of that Leopard that we saw on the drone feed is very much alive. They are fine, and they will get a new tank. And when they get a new tank, they will come back.
Yeah.
And as Laserpig pointed out, how many Russian tank crews, after they've been hit by a javelin or an RPG and it hits their ammo, how many of them can you say have gotten a new tank?
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you put extra ammo on top of a fuel tank and sit it next to the driver. You know, the T-72 is the most fabulously, fantastically designed vehicle in the world. You must understand this.
Oh, yes.
But I always love these people that go on about NATO super weapons, like the HIMARS and the Leopard and everything. These aren't super weapons. These are weapons. These are just regular weapons that we have. They're not super at all. We can build these like we can build fucking McDonald's. There's nothing super about them. They're just built to an incredibly higher standard than what you're used to when you look at Russian stuff.
They're just better.
Yeah.
Everybody get ready to take a shot, because you know what time it is.
Oh, God.
Oh, let me go get a
shot. Get a shot, because you know what time it is. For those of you playing at home, I have a video by a friend, a certain Australian man who's good at PowerPoints, which you can watch.
Hey,
where he talks about replenishment in NATO armies, almost as though it's his job for my government or something. I don't know. But point is, there's a whole video
name drop Pierre and everybody take a drink.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. You have to drink. There you go. But in all seriousness, he has a whole fucking hour presentation about where he lists out every single fucking factory that are just producing 155 for Ukraine. And there's like, what? 20? 30? In the EU alone. And they just got contracts from all of the governments, including Ukraine's government, but across NATO, to amp up production by 300%.
Holy balls, man.
There was a Czech factory who basically said, hey guys, you know what? You want, how many shells do we normally make? Oh, we make 10,000 for the Czech army every year. You want to make 400,000 rounds? Yeah. You gonna pay us for it? Yeah. Bet. Okay. You know those old lines we shut down back in the old days in 91? Restart them. Let's go.
I love that. I love because Yugoslavia back in the day was a huge sort of production center for like Soviet era arms, and some Western arms at the same time. They've still got those huge factories sitting there that are practically dormant because they don't really need them. Now Czechia or Czechoslovakia, whatever they decided to call themselves today, they've still got them there. And they can ramp up production easily. They're capable of producing like 1 million shells a month if they want.
It's unreal.
Yeah. They can those old Soviet factories are huge. Go ahead, Dylan.
I never really took seriously the idea that the West literally physically could not build the munitions in order to supply Ukraine. We're talking about basically the entirety of the European Union, the entirety of NATO, the United States, which is the heart and center of the military-industrial complex. You've got Australia, Japan also is getting involved in aid, maybe not so much military aid, but that is being talked about more openly by the Japanese government. We see South Koreans sending artillery shells. It's always been a question about political will, and that's what scares me a little bit about this counteroffensive, is that if what happens is we see a lot of military casualties for the Ukrainians, or even just an expectable amount of military casualties without, I think, concrete results, that could start to whittle down the resolve of the people. And that is something that I'm concerned about. It's not about the West's, I think, ability to do it. The West can do it. It's a question if the West will bother to do it, which I hope they will, of course.
I don't have any concerns really about Western support for Ukraine.
I do, if I'm completely honest with you, and I think Russia's kind of banking on that very slightly. They're kind of hoping to ride this out to the point where everyone in the West kind of gets bored with Ukraine. They don't want to talk about it anymore. Like it's the war. It's over there. It's so far away. I'm bored of talking about it. Can we talk about something else, please? And everyone gets bored of it, and then it becomes politically disadvantageous to support Ukraine because now everyone's bored of it, and the people who are against it are starting to get louder. And I think that's kind of what Russia's banking on, and that does kind of worry me that those voices kind of start to get louder and louder and louder, which is why it's always important to me to point out that like Ukraine is a country with people in it, and those are the people who are suffering because of Russian aggression. It's got nothing to do with NATO expansion. It's got nothing to do with the Zelensky regime or whatever. It's literally people trying to live their life in their own country being attacked by what is literally fucking colonial and imperialism from a fucking mad dictatorship whose single response to absolutely any crisis over the past 40-odd years has been to rush all his tanks to the border and threaten to invade someone. Who actually wrote a fucking book where he stated loudly and proudly that he could put tanks and paratroopers in every single major capital in Europe within a week.
You know, I want to second this because I was at the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio the other day.
Hell yeah,
hanging out with Brandon F. Hi, Brandon, if you're listening. And
hi, Brandon.
Hi, Brandon.
And we were listening to some people walking by, and we heard this guy say, like, I have a lot of opinions about Russia, but I'm so effing sick of hearing about Ukraine and, like, you know, this country I don't even care about. And Brandon and I just kind of looked at each other. We're just like, oh, what a pleasant fellow. Like, I almost said something, but you got to pick your battles, you know?
Yeah,
you see, that's the problem, Falcon. You're a good person.
Yeah, I know.
And you have restraint. I don't. I pick fights publicly too often, and that's...
I remember I could have fucking drop kicked that motherfucker through the window.
I would have picked a fight, definitely.
In the United States, I mean, it's still overwhelming support for Ukraine amongst the American public, or at least even in the lowest polls, it's still a plurality of support for Ukraine and support for sending weapons. That is clear, and this is even more dominant when you talk about the actual elected officials, the actual people in Congress, the actual people in the Senate, the people who make the decisions and will make the congressional approval of aid possible. Even if even worst case scenario, Trump gets in the White House and he wants to cancel all the aid, there's still a path for congressional aid to move forward. That's what Trump tried to stop during the Zelensky phone call famously, but it had to go forward because it was congressionally approved. So there's still a lot of hope. There's still a lot of reason to believe that America is still supporting Ukraine. The West is still supporting Ukraine. But that is why I'm somewhat concerned about this counteroffensive. Is we all know the war most certainly won't end this year. And the results of this specific counteroffensive most likely, no matter what happens, will not end the war. And I'm concerned about the pictures of these burnt-out tanks combined with a Republican frontrunner constantly talking about the need to immediately negotiate and basically sacrifice Ukraine. That political environment is scary to me because it could just become campaign fodder. These types of photos, these types of photographs for not only Trump, but Vivek Ramaswamy and these other people who are entertaining this on the campaign trail.
I think the reason why, and forgive me, I'm gonna stand here. I'm not going to start a fight. I promise.
Oh,
the reason why I am...
Please don't fight with our guest, Anarchy.
I'm not talking about our guest.
Come on!
Our guest,
Okay, Anarchy, if you like Trump, that's perfectly fine.
I
understand.
Oh, he started. Okay, no, I'm not talking about fighting Dylan. I'm talking about fighting chat, because I'm gonna say controversial things. Because, quite frankly, the reason why I don't have a problem is the nature of American military industrial complexes and the requirement of capital to continuously expand. Ironically enough, the way to defeat Russian imperialism is good old-fashioned American imperialism, quite frankly. And a controversial take, which will get me disowned by all my fellow lefties, if you give me a choice between American imperialism or Russian imperialism, I will take American imperialism any day of the fucking week.
Well, yeah, because under Russian imperialism, Russia takes away everything that's nice that you have. They take away all your resources, and they force you into being a very poor country so that you utterly rely on Moscow for everything that you need, so that you don't ever get the chance to believe that you could be independent without them. Whereas with American imperialism, you get Starbucks.
Yeah.
You know, and here's a little facet I just thought about. You can call this like the Dark Falcon segment or something, but Raytheon and Lockheed Martin could potentially make a shit ton of money out of this.
That's my whole thing. You see, the reason why I don't understand these conservatives about how they're all like, we gotta leave, we gotta, do all this. Okay, so first off, I'm gonna call them out on their bullshit on this particular issue, and I'm going to say it. Magatards, this is to you. You're all talking about how, we're spending all this money on Ukraine. Why don't we spend it on America? You weren't going to spend it on America, were you? You were going to use the money that you saved by not spending money in Ukraine to give tax cuts to people like Musk and Bezos. That's what you were going to do it with. You weren't going to use that money to pay for universal health care or for education or anything like that. No. The moment you saved that money, you were going to give a tax cut to Amazon so they could open up a new warehouse and then reverse all the progressive pay reforms that they've made in the past 6 months. And then you're going to say, you see, we're using these tax cuts to prop up American business, to spur on growth. Where did all the money go? Oh, you mean all the money that was supposed to go to Ukraine went to all of our campaign donors? Well, isn't that a surprise? So don't give me this high horse, holier than thou crap. Number one. Number two, and this appeals to our resident America patriot Falcon here. This whole situation, remove the moral aspect, okay? I know our entire podcast is based on feelings, not facts, about how fuck Russia, we like Ukraine. And to be honest, that's still true, okay? But remove that aspect entirely. We stand to get so much fucking money out of this. Are you mad? Because when this war ends, which it will have to, and, touching wood, with a Ukrainian flag over the Kerch Bridge. When this ends...
Over Moscow, even better. But in all seriousness, when this war ends, there is going to need to be a Marshall Plan for Ukraine. We're going to need the EU and NATO to roll in, and we're going to need to set up, we're going to need to set up infrastructure, we're going to need to restore the power stations, we're going to need to rebuild housing and stuff. Who do you think's going to get all the contracts for that? Ukraine's got all its soldiers coming out of the war, and the sad truth is a lot of Ukraine specialists, people who would be needed for this process, would have been killed in the fight with Russia for their freedom. So, who is going to get all the contracts? Who is going to get all the money and the bills to rebuild Ukraine's military down to its peacetime standard with a full NATO integration, with what they say? They're going for the KF-51 Panther, no less, for their main battle tank after the war. So they say. Right? They're going to want to go to F-35s eventually, which after the war we'll have to have a conversation about, right? When they rebuild their military and rebuild their country, who is going to get all the contracts for that? Who do you think is going to get all the, rebuild Ukraine funds set up from all the European governments? They're all those shadow corporations that own 50% of everything, right? I can't remember. The globalists.
The globalist quotation marks. Who do you think is going to get all the contracts, all the resupply orders, all the factory construction requirements? And of course, Ukraine has, 80% of Europe's agricultural sector or something ridiculous. It has huge potential oil and natural gas reserves in the Black Sea. You also have all those factories and natural resource elements in southeastern Ukraine and the Donbass, around Mariupol and so forth. Who do you think's going to get first dibs? We are. So we get to destroy our primary European rival militarily, economically, and politically. We get all of the contracts ever for all of our corporations and private companies, and even small businesses. We get all of those. We get to reclaim all of our assets in Ukraine, because there was a ton of McDonald's and Apple stores and Amazon distribution centers and all that. There was a ton of those in, Kharkiv, Kherson, and all those other places, and in eastern Ukraine that are currently occupied by the Russians. We have to go get all those back. And then on top of that, the US basically imploded its entire foreign relations setup during the Trump administration.
Yep.
Then you have the war on terror, where, let's be honest, abandoning Afghanistan, well, it kind of had to be done, didn't work out, and then you had the Iraq war, and let's just say America's foreign policy capital was a kind of in the dumpster between the global war on terror and Trump, right? So you get to destroy Russia. You make a crap ton of money in the military-industrial complex. The rebuilding process is going to revitalize your domestic sector while giving you a bunch of Ukrainian workers who you then get to train and skill them up and get them back on their feet, which in turn drives their purchasing power. And who are they going to buy their products from? They're going to buy them from, as Laserfix said, Macca's, Starbucks. They're all going to be reopening stores in Ukraine, and guess where that revenue is going to go? To us. And to top it all off, America and the Western world, and the Western world's governments, by contrast, get to be the good guys. We win. No matter how helping Ukraine, we win. There is nothing but wins here. So I don't see how anyone can stand up and say this isn't in our interest. It's very much in our interest.
I'll tell you where that comes from, though. All the Russian propaganda that was pumped in through Fox News for the past, 10 years.
Oh, well, there goes a third.
I'm going there. I'm going right there.
What's your take? What's your take, Dylan? Am I completely out of my mind, or it's like?
I think you're making solid points about what the financial and geopolitical interests in expanding the transatlantic alliance to permanently include Ukraine economically and geopolitically. I think you make a really good case for it. But when we're talking about Donald Trump on the campaign trail, this is not somebody who necessarily is going to listen to that argument and be like, wow, that was a very fair and reasonable point. You just brought this realization to me. This is a mudslinger who's going to do everything he can to smear the administration's policies, and somebody who, in my opinion, has a very favorable view of Vladimir Putin, and has on multiple occasions talked about just straight up selling out the Ukrainians in favor of him. He uses these campaign losses that the Ukrainians are taking, putting them on his social media. He's not the only one doing it. Other Republicans like Vivek Ramaswamy do it. If there's not much results in the next year, battlefield results, and we are seeing pictures of our equipment that we sent over on technically the taxpayer's dime, it makes a hell of a good narrative for the campaign trail. And Trump is one of the few people crazy enough to get in there and actually attempt to completely screw up our policy on Ukraine. And so I as much as I agree with the substance of what you're saying, I don't think the substance is necessarily going to be communicated through the Trump campaign, or the substance is necessarily going to be communicated to the isolationist American voter, which after Afghanistan and Iraq, those tendencies still exist for good reason, and some, at least to them, for good reason.
That's the interesting thing, though, because aside from volunteers and aid workers / journalists such as yourself, aside from that, not a single, officially, I mean, I'm sure there are some Green Beret Delta Force types around somewhere. Well, actually, I know there are, but we can't talk about that. Officially, not a single American serviceman.
That's who that was. Okay, sorry, continue.
Not a single American serviceman has died or been in direct conflict with the Russian military through the course of this campaign. Not one. Now, as I said, CIA and JSOC be CIAing and JSOCing. But at the end of the day, I don't see, I understand what you're saying, but what you're translating to my brain is that American isolationists are stupid. And quite frankly, yes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also do recognize their concerns in that America has been involved in forever wars several times in the past 50 years. So I can understand, where that's coming from.
Yeah, and we also need to remember, we're listening about rumblings right now of a recession. Imagine we head into 2024 and we enter a recession leading into it. So we have Joe Biden against Donald Trump leading into through a recession economy, and one of the major issues on the campaign trail, possibly pushed by Donald Trump, is the fact that we're sending tens of billions of dollars in military and humanitarian aid to another country while we're in the middle of a recession. It's just not the best political environment for people who support Ukraine like us. That is something that does concern me, and this type of battlefield loss the type of battlefield losses we could see on the campaign field right now could add to that narrative. And that's the only point I'm making, is that I have a lot of concern about, if this doesn't succeed, that ammunition being added to a Trump playbook or any playbook, anybody using the playbook trying to undermine support for Ukraine.
It makes sense. We see we see conservatives all over the place. I mean, the only place, ironically, where conservatives are 100% lockstep behind Ukraine is, of course, the UK. But the funny thing is, the reason that is because it's the first good thing that the Conservatives in the UK have done in the past 20 years.
I mean, yeah, it serves as a good distraction because, you know, the Conservative government has royally fucked this country over in more ways than one, because we've had a succession of gradually increasingly worse prime ministers since Cameron beat Gordon back in 2010. Brexit didn't work as planned, the government famously didn't have a plan and they argued about it for years, the country's in a major recession, everything about Boris Johnson having parties while everyone was in lockdown over COVID is coming out. I mean, he could potentially be arrested. And it's everything is basically the government's fault, and they're acting like entitled Eton/Oxford children because they are, and they're finding it harder and harder to hide from that fact. The problem isn't Brexit or recession or immigration or anything else. The problem is them, and it has been for the past 13 years. So Rishi Sunak has come into a country that's basically spiraling back into what it was like back in the 1970s, and he, just like every other Conservative Prime Minister before him, has absolutely no idea what to do because he's a trust fund baby whose work background is being a hedge fund manager, and some problems cannot be solved by just moving money around, which is all he knows how to do, and that's all he's tried so far. So pictures of him riding in a Chinook hugging Zelensky are, you know, proving massively brilliant distraction, and it's proving really popular with the public because for once, we get to stuff it to Europe. Fuck America refusing to send long-range artillery. Here's half our inventory of MLRS systems and AS-90s. Fuck Germany wanting to sit around discussing if it's right or not to send tanks. Here's 21 Challenger 2s. Fuck Sweden being, oh, no, our jets are too expensive. We'll teach you to fly F-16s. We'll give you parts for your jets. We'll buy old MiG-29s and ship them to you. Fuck everybody talking about, is it right or not to cross the red line and give Ukraine missiles that could potentially hit Russian soil. Have a fucking cruise missile. Have 100. This is Britain's time to shine, and we are fucking running with it. Out of our fucking way, America. And fuck you, Europe. The fucking Empire strikes back, baby. Whatever Ukraine wants, guns, helicopters, artillery, missiles. We'll train your troops. We'll airdrop you medical supplies, ammunition. We don't have eggs anymore because of avian flu. Our economy is in the toilet and everyone hates us. But you can have all the stuff we have. Whatever you want, fucking take it. Fuck Russia. Rule Britannia, baby.
Unironically based position.
That is the most American sounding thing I've heard in a long time out of you. And you know what? The fact that that is the stance that the British people hold is just, it makes my heart warm with freedom.
You know what? You want to know what it is? You know what it is? I just had that epiphany moment. Rishi Sunak is literally trying to channel Thatcher. Right?
Yeah, he is.
Because it's the...
Every single Conservative politician is trying to channel Thatcher. Come on.
I know, but it's actually working for the simple reason is that their one good foreign policy decision is over a war.
Yeah, it was a good foreign policy decision when it happened. I mean, no one likes to talk about the fact that Thatcher was slowly reducing the military in strength and power. And if Argentina had waited maybe a couple of years, then we just wouldn't have had the capability to go after them. And we would have had to give up the fucking Falkland Islands to Argentina because we wouldn't have had an army. We would have had nothing. And gradually, slowly, our Conservatives right now are doing the same. They have reduced in strength and power and funding the British military to the point where it's basically a shadow of its former self. It's very disappointing and very saddening to see. And we've been given this one opportunity for our stuff to actually make a fucking difference. And we're just going all in. You just fuck it. What do you need? You can fucking have it. Take it. You want scimitars, you want warriors, you want fucking tanks. Fuck it. We'll give you fucking jet planes. We're genuine. I mean, I don't think the Eurofighter's on the table, but there was a serious discussion about tornadoes. I think that's kind of come off a bit now, and we're now looking at, I think the more serious propositions is F-16s, but there has been some rumblings about the Gripen. I think we discussed that last time as well, didn't we?
There is also some rumblings about my homeland redirecting our old F-18s to Ukraine
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
And God, I hope so.
Legacy Hornets would do great there.
Legacy Hornets would be a great investment, if nothing else, for the sheer type of ordnance carriage that we could provide them. Also, just saying, hey guys over at Boeing Aerospace and Ardew, I mean, I live, what, an hour away from Ardew? Hey guys, just letting you know, if we do provide our old Hornets, they are compatible with the Loyal Wingman project we've got going on. Go Spat. Just saying. If you wanted to combat test Loyal Wingman, I'm just saying. Also, I would love for Australia to host Ukrainian fighter pilots. Rock stars. Absolute kings. Absolute kings. Yeah. Do please ask our friends LP if their Air Force would like to talk to me, because I want to talk to them.
Oh, that sounds great. Please.
I've definitely put in the request that we'd love to talk to some.
I've been meaning to get Ukrainian press accreditation, because we can all apply for it, I believe. Do you have yours, Dylan? I would assume so.
I'm accredited with the Ministry of Defense. Yep, I got a press card and everything.
Hell yeah.
I should really shoot them an email to organize that. I think we all should, really, given what we're doing literally right now. I suppose we should.
I don't know how difficult, because I'm not actually accredited with my YouTube channel. I'm accredited with a separate news organization to help me a lot with the paperwork. I don't know how easy the process would be for a YouTuber if you were to say, like, here's my press outlet, it's my YouTube channel. Since it's not like considered a traditional press outlet, I don't think it's impossible. I have no reason to believe it's impossible, and it's not a terribly difficult process. You should be able to do it if at least they should be able to do it, I assume.
Yeah, I should be able to. I think Jake, the main man, I think he is. I would assume so.
I mean, in terms of that pass, Dylan, have you noticed that it kind of opened doors for you, or are you still feeling that you're kind of left on the side burner, and it's up to you to try and find the stories yourself? Because I did notice that not that long ago you were following around teams of people who were doing demining operations.
I was following around demining crews in the Kharkiv Oblast. I was essentially living with them for a month. Originally, it was going to be like a week, but I got super invested in the demining efforts once I realized the scale of the problem and the type of work they were doing, and I just got personally invested as well. And so I decided that I was actually going to be with them for more than 1 second. There's a kid making noise in the background.
Could you imagine the smell in the back of those trucks?
Oh God, yeah.
Go.
But yeah, so I lived with the deminers for basically a month. As for the press accreditation getting me into rooms, it's super important for just traveling the country generally as a journalist. You go through checkpoints, definitely in the areas that are seeing a lot more like action, a lot more heat, a lot more conflict. They're going to notice a foreigner coming through with an American passport, and they're going to ask questions. And giving them the press card basically fix the situation in 95% of like scenarios where they're like, oh, okay, you're press, we understand, and they'll just flag you through. And sometimes maybe they'll search your car and they'll still pat you down because you're foreigners and that's suspicious. You don't speak Ukrainian. But in most scenarios, it's going to allow you to travel much more easily in the country and allow you to go to places that if you didn't have it, you wouldn't be able to travel, like near the front line.
I mean, how close have you gotten to that front line?
I have gotten to the forward operating position, so I've been on the front line before.
Jesus.
Oh boy.
Are you allowed to tell us exactly where, or is that still...
Yeah, that was twice in Zaporozhye. Well, the first time it was in Zaporozhye. The second time I didn't go to the front line. I went to Orihiv. That was like 2 months ago with a military chaplain who was delivering aid in that region. The first time it was with territorial defense, and we went to the forward operating position. We were 1 mile from the Russians.
God damn.
My God.
We know from your YouTube channel that you have been shot at by the Russians before.
Yeah, I mean, there's been 2 interactions with the Russians that I had that I think were special. The first time was that they chased me around with the drone for a bit. an artillery spotting drone from what I can tell from the experience. That was actually from the first time we went to the front line. On the path to the front line, we were, driving in what was essentially a soccer mom van that they had painted green and said, boom, military. And they do that a ton with SUVs here. They do that a ton with pickup trucks here. Problem with this soccer mom van is the thing couldn't stay on. Like it would keep shutting off over and over and over again. So we're traveling towards the front line in this dinky soccer mom van that keeps shutting off. And on the path there, we get a report that the location we're going to, the forward operating position, is getting heavily shelled. And so we need to stop, and we pull off on the side of the road. There's like a forest to our right and a big open field to our left. A lot of areas like that in Zaporozhye, a lot of open plains. So we just sit on the side of the road, and I just basically film the soldiers just doing whatever, almost like National Geographic. I was just interested to see how they interact on a daily basis, type of things they talk about. About 30 minutes in, I start to hear this weird sound, like a zzz, like almost, when your phone vibrates and it sounds like a small motor, almost, maybe also like a swarm of bees. Maybe that's a way I could describe it. And I turn to my friend Patrick Hillsman. He's done a lot of reporting in Syria, really good guy. And I ask him, "Do you hear that?" And he says, "No, I don't hear it." So I'm like, "Okay, I guess I'm going crazy," and I ignore it. But then, like 5 seconds later, a Ukrainian territorial defense guy yells "drone," and we all have to run into the forest. We don't know if it's a suicide drone. We don't know if it has like grenades attached to it and is going to drop it on us, or if it's a spotter drone spotting for artillery. So we're there for like 2-3 minutes, just in the forest, just waiting around, not knowing what to do. And eventually one of them makes the call that, staying here while there's a drone in the area isn't a smart move. So we make a run for it, get in the van, but they only drive away like 2 miles. So the drone's still in the area. They pull back into the forest. They start talking for another like 5 to 10 minutes on what exactly they should do. And in that time, my friend Patrick Hillsman is adamant that the position we left started to get shelled by artillery, that the drone that had spotted us started to shell the position that we were at. I didn't go back and confirm it. This is something he says. That's not something I don't know that for sure, but that's something he's adamant about. We then make the decision. We're going to get in the van and we're just going to make a beeline for the SPG-9 training practice that we were trying to do later in the day. So we all get in the van. It failed. The car failed. So there's a drone circling overhead and they can't get the van to start. And at that point, we have no clue what we're going to do. We're talking about like seeing if we could push the van. They were just throwing out ideas that none of them that were good ideas. All of them were terrible ideas. But thankfully, the van stopped failing. They got it on and we were able to go to SPG-9 practice. We got out of there. The time I got shelled, though, that was in Mykolaiv. I was in Mykolaiv at the start of the Kherson counteroffensive, which I was not expecting.
Yeah. The Ukrainian army does a little trolling while you're out trying to be a journalist, and then, all of a sudden, hey, you know how you were safe? Guess what, Chief? I saw that video on your channel. Artillery just starts going off.
Yeah, I was in Mykolaiv because I was going to film at a hospital that had been bombed out. It was one of the most modern trauma centers in Mykolaiv. It was built in 2019, which is extremely important considering it's a trauma center. Somebody gets shot. Somebody has a very, like what could have been a fatal injury. A trauma center can save somebody's life. And so I wanted to film the fact that it got bombed, and we were also going to deliver some aid to a dog shelter that was in the area that, there's not a lot of dog shelters in the areas that are getting heavily shelled. And the few that are still operating have trouble convincing people sometimes to bring out aid for it because, humans are obviously more important and people sometimes for good reason, concentrate on that. So we wanted to bring over some, the dog food, stuff like that. And when we were in the city, I decided I wanted to get a steak and milkshake because I'm a fat American and it's my culture. So we went over to this local restaurant. We got a steak and milkshake. And while I was in there, I start scrolling on my phone and CNN saying, start of counteroffensives. This counteroffensive has started to liberate Kherson. And I don't really believe it. I'm like, nah. We've heard this song and dance before because there was a million different false starts to the beginning of the Kherson counteroffensive. A lot of people don't talk about it. It's very similar to what it feels like right now with the Zaporozhye counteroffensive, where you had a lot of, Russian sources saying, the counteroffensive has failed. And it was like a probing operation. So I didn't really buy it. And so I start leaving the place. We're walking towards the van, and a shell lands about 100 feet to my left. Then another shell lands about 150 feet to my right. And so I thankfully had my camera on me. I was very, I held on to my camera a lot while I was down there. Number one, as a comfort item. And number two, because it's good to have your camera on you at all times, because you never know when it's going to happen. It's never when you expect it. It's always when you don't expect it. So I recorded what I could until the shelling got too heavy, because it started hitting the buildings like right next to us. And then we got in the van and we tried to get to a safer area. But everywhere we drove, that would also then start to get shelled, because they were just peppering the entirety of the city center at rush hour. Some civilians did die in those strikes. Others were injured. I think it was like 3 dead, 14 injured that day.
Jesus.
And the Russians just panicked. They panicked because the Kherson counteroffensive was hitting them hard. And that night, it was impossible to sleep. The shelling was tremendously loud. The next day, I actually went across the river from the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. I wanted to talk to the locals about the possibility of a disaster, how it would affect them. And that night, I counted 50 explosions in 30 seconds from across the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, watching the explosions next to the power plant, because the shelling was so unbelievably heavy.
Jesus. I mean, talking about Zaporizhia, do we know if the reactor has been shut down, or is it still in operation?
It has been shut down, but that doesn't mean that there still isn't a radiological risk, because I'm not a nuclear scientist expert or whatever, but I had to do a tiny bit of research for my video on this. But because of the process they use in order to create power, there's still radiation that was emitted from the rods that they used to do it. I forget all the terminology for it. Basically, point is they still need water in order to cool it. And now that the Novokakhovka Dam has been destroyed, it has been put at risk. Now, thankfully, they have enough stuff stored and can get enough stuff currently that they're safe for a few weeks. But this is a problem they're going to have to resolve down the line, is the fact that they no longer have a steady supply of water to cool the power plant. And that's something they have to resolve, something the IAEA needs to get on immediately.
The problem is, if they shut the reactor down completely, you then run the risk of, because it's an older Soviet reactor, right? It's the one in Zaporizhia at the moment. Yeah. Very similar to the one in Chernobyl. So, yeah, they did a lot of refits and fixing up the issues. Again, I'm also a nuclear scientist, but for proclivities of my own design, I do a lot of reading and research in nuclear weapons. So, what's interesting about the nuclear reactor is they're going, eventually, realistically speaking, the guys at Zaporizhia are going to have to decide whether they want to keep the reactor in sort of shut down standby mode, so they can sort of bring it back online when things, calm down and they can restore power to the area, or if they're going to have to, Fukushima, 3 Mile Island, panic mode and basically flood the reactor, just destroy it, basically, to stop it from overloading. Because if you let a reactor run away, especially some of those older Soviet types, once it gets past a certain point of criticality, there's no stopping it. So they're going to have to decide whether they want to keep it running or whether they want to trash it, basically. And with the blowing of the dam, yeah, that's they're on borrowed time. They have to make the call, basically. And that's the next thing.
I saw that dam, and for the longest time, I was willing to give the Russians the benefit of the doubt that it was a maintenance issue, because that's very up their alley, forgetting to do maintenance or paying for the maintenance. And then by the time that money has filtered down all those layers of Russian management, Yuri has spent the remaining 20 rubles in a sandwich. Right. And you add to that the damages last year, like the increased water from the snow melting and the shit show of a repair job. I think even I was back on Twitter back then going, that dam is going to go. It's going to go. Because look, okay, I'm not a dam expert, but I do have a little bit of personal experience what happens when one of these things breaks. There was this dam in England, just outside of Manchester, in a town called Whaley Bridge, I think, which ironically has nothing to do with a bridge or whaling. But they do have this dam. and it cracked, and I got to witness firsthand the British Army basically flying in to rescue the dam, and the sheer amount of work that went into it, work the Russians didn't do, because they basically just put a plank over it and said, job done. So I was like, yeah, that's clearly a maintenance failure, because like it was overspilling, you know, and it turns out, no, that's just not what went down at all. It turns out the dam is like an old Soviet design, and yeah, they're built to withstand like aerial bombardment and everything, but they do have several unique structural flaws built into the design that if you were to set off, say, an explosive device in those areas, the dam would break. And guess where the dam broke? In those exact places. Now, this is not something that is representative of what we see if, like, the dam had failed due to lack of maintenance.
I guess the thing that really gets me is the amount of people who look at this and came to the conclusion that Ukraine did it. Now, I can understand somebody looking at the available evidence saying, we don't know, right? I can understand that. But anybody looking at the available evidence and thinking for a moment that the preponderance of it points towards Ukraine doing it is either dishonest or has been either played a fool or is a fool. Tucker Carlson, for example, he was just dishonest. He nitpicked 2 pieces of information, ignored expert testimony from demolition experts, from munitions experts, ignored the Russian benefits of shortening the front line and what they could see out of this disaster, ignored the negatives for Ukraine, not only in the short term, but in the long term when it comes to their economy, the electricity that the dam provided, how expensive the dam is, the problem it's going to cause for its irrigation systems, not only in Kherson, but in Mykolaiv and all these different areas. I have to assume bad intent.
Okay, and here's one thing I wanted to add. Now, I have gotten in some hot water in different times recently for various reasons, for my somewhat callous approach to Russians in general, right? But even with this dam situation, I looked at it and went, okay, from my military historian brain, destroying a dam to flood an area to prevent military operations over a river, even as big a river as the Dnieper, is an old tactic. It's been used since Roman times, for goodness sake, since dams were invented just about. You know, manipulating waterways and blowing dams and blocking off rivers, etc. All of this sort of thing has been done to shape a battlefield and improve your military situation. So while it's horrible for the people of Ukraine, I was like looking at it from a... So there's lots of people who are saying it's a travesty and a war crime, which it is. But at the same time, as a military necessity, you know, it's a grey area. I mean, look, I'm an Anglo. All of my family were in Bomber Command during World War II. I can't exactly sit over here and pontificate about blowing up dams, right? But here's the thing. It's the fact that they blow up the dam and then begin shelling the evacuation effort.
Yeah, that's what turned me into, yeah, Russia's blowing this fucking dam. I mean, shelling the rescue efforts. I mean, and they're uploading footage of it as well and being like, yeah, we prevented the Ukrainian military from staging a landing. And then you can clearly see like a group of people in civilian clothes and like a canoe. Ukraine isn't going to stage a naval landing across the Dnipro River. They have one landing craft. And maybe some bridge layers, but the Dnipro is like one of the fastest and strongest rivers in Europe. Even if I had the power and might of the entirety of the United States of America, I wouldn't chance it. With one landing craft and maybe some barges and some civilian boats, it would have been suicide. Come on. I mean, the thing is, I can kind of see where people like Tucker Carlson are getting their ideas from. Because if you have an IQ that is below 100 and you look at the big picture, most of the damage has been concentrated on the Russian side. And we saw absolutely zero movement from the Russians. When all that water came in, all their supplies, all their defensive lines, all their gun placements were basically destroyed. So it does look like if Russia did blow the dam, they basically sabotaged themselves. But Ukraine was never going to perform a river crossing anyway. And if they did, all they've done is make the extremely wide and extremely fast river even wider and faster. And now with a bunch of shit at the bottom that you can get stuff snagged on, while at the same time wiping out a considerable number of villages, killing a small percentage of their population, and ecologically destroying hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland just to save the hassle of mortaring a few trench lines. It's like these people lack the ability to think.
No way. I mean, especially when, even though it's an option, even like militarily speaking, an assault across the Dnieper with the equipment that Ukraine has and the men they have at the moment, it's just not feasible for a major operation. So it doesn't benefit them to assault the Dnieper directly. So there would be no reason to destroy those positions. But as I said, like circling back to what I was saying, you know, even when I try to give Russia the benefit of the doubt, when I'm like, okay, blowing up this dam, yeah, it's a horrible thing to do, but militarily I can see the utility in it. You've basically made the Dnieper impossible to assault across. There's no way you can do a large-scale operation across that now, because now the current's going to be insane as it was already. The Dnieper's current was already formidable. It's now impossible, and you've flooded the area, and you've diverted a lot of Ukrainian resources away to have to deal with the problem. So yeah, I can understand the military utility of blowing the dam, and then, oh, by the way, you know all the civilian relief convoys and the ambulances trying to help people? We're going to shell them. Like, this is the thing. Even when they're doing something that, while horrible, is a military, you know, operation that makes sense to do, they have to add war crimes on top of it because it's Russia, obviously. We could have just done this and let the Ukrainians evacuate, but of course not. We're going to... There is a survivor of the, quote, Great Patriotic War. I know most people have seen this story already, but there was a survivor of the Great Patriotic War, a guy who'd lived in Ukraine all his life. He'd survived the Holodomor. He'd survived World War II. You know, he's sitting there and he's like, you know, as people were rescuing him, he said, I've survived one war and now I'm trying to survive another, right? And they shelled his boat. They wounded him with Russian artillery. For so-called denazifiers, wounding someone who survived the Nazis seems rather fucking counterproductive.
If the irony of the denazification claim, if you want to make it a little bit more ironic, they also shelled the chief rabbi of Ukraine who was involved in the evacuation efforts down there as well.
Just...
Yeah, because they don't give a shit about Ukrainians. I mean, anyone who thinks otherwise anyone who thinks otherwise must be off their fucking head, because they've given no clear indication that they even give a fucking shit about the Ukrainians, about these people or their lives. They don't care about the people. They care about the land. They want the land. That's it. They want the land. They want the resources. They want access to the Black Sea uncontested. That's it. The people are secondary to them. And if they have to wipe them out, they fucking will. And that is one of the huge points why I support Ukraine on this fucking war, because I don't want to see all these people die. I'm sorry.
It's absolutely... Anyone who doesn't see what's happening here has not picked up a single history book regarding the history of Ukraine in their lives. Not one. No one has ever seen it. Ever. If they even think that. Like, the Ukrainian people have been trying to have their own home for the past, what, 3 centuries? I mean, I was saying this. This is one of my points that I was saying to Gazpacho Lafanzo when I was doing my quote-unquote debate or argument, I should really say. Whatever. I don't fucking care. One of the things I was trying to explain to him was that it's not your decision if or not Ukraine decides that they want to be part of Russia. It's not Russia's decision either. It's their decision. And they've conclusively decided they don't want to be part of Russia. They don't want Russia in their country. They're quite happy with what they've got. I mean, Dylan, have you met anyone in Ukraine? I mean, granted, it could be passed off as being an unpopular public opinion that might be getting suppressed, but have you met anyone in Ukraine who has been pro-Russian, even secretly?
No, not really. I had a conversation with somebody serving in the Donbass about this. I asked him, like, hey, man, he was really honest with me. I was like, how many people out here do you think support the Russians, actually? And he said, I'm sorry about the noise again. He told me, he said, like, maybe 1 in 10. That was the number he gave me. And honestly, that's a number I can believe. But it certainly isn't the 40 to 30 to, like, 45. It is not a mainstream position. It's not a position you run into a lot.
those people exist. A lot of people know where those people are because they sometimes they'll even be open about those beliefs. But again, it's still a very small statistical minority overall.
I must admit that when you look at the revolutions from Maidan and the quote counter-revolutions by the people in the Donbass, you find it interesting, all these referendums. The referendums that were held are very similar to the Crimean referendum, which was you can either be an independent state or you can join Russia. What about if we want to stay with Ukraine? No. You can be an independent state or you can join Russia. You will not be allowed to be an independent state or rejoin Ukraine. Look, why would anyone voluntarily want to be part of Russia? If I recall, back when I was born, about 90% of Eastern Europe was trying to not be Russia. If I recall correctly. I mean,
I have a good friend who he's a very strange person. If you know the film Brokeback Mountain, it was essentially based on his life. Or so he claims, because he actually lived that experience. He's a strange man. He was born on the borders between two countries that no longer exist. He moved to Scotland and has been seeking Scottish citizenship for the longest time. It's eventually officially granted it. And his parents are actually American. But he spent his life skirting behind the Iron Curtain, going around all these Soviet states, basically going into the mountains and going to small villages and everything, just talking to people and listening to their stories and everything. And the stories and the actual horror stories that he has told me about communism and about what basically Russia was doing to these people beggars belief. And the thing is, I've begged him numerous times to let me record him speak and to just start writing down what he knows, because he knows songs, he knows folk stories, he knows like nursery rhymes and the stories of people and families who are no longer with us. And the reason they are no longer with us is because of Russia.
Yep. That's it. And that's the thing that tankies will never understand, that tankies will never acknowledge, is the fact that the Bolshevik Revolution and the subsequent Soviet revolutions that built the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics was very, very good for party members and for Russians. Because if you look at the history of the Soviet Union, you will find that even though they proclaim themselves as a brotherhood, a union of Soviet states, when you look at their policies, Russification under the Tsar, under the Russian Empire, Russification was continued throughout the Soviet era.
Yes,
Russification was continued. And that policy was carried out ruthlessly by Stalin, very famously, which is even more ironic because Stalin is a Georgian.
It was Stalification. So it wasn't like you had places in like Hungary and everything where rather than you'd have a preacher in the pulpit and rather than discuss the light of God and the Bible and everything, he was discussing the power and might of Stalin, and that was what he was preaching in a church.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. My favorite piece of reading on this topic is when you look at the ledgers and actual forms filled out by the NKVD under Beria during the Second World War, and the different groups of people they deported as enemy aliens. And funnily enough, it included every ethnic minority that wasn't considered true Slavs. And even then, the Ukrainians didn't escape very easily either. The Ukrainians suffered horribly under Stalinist rule, mainly because the Ukrainians were very famous for wanting their own country. Funnily enough, Stalin didn't take a very high view of that and weaponized the worst famine in European history to, well, besides from the Black Deaths, obviously, to quash nationalist resistance in Ukraine. And then after people were rightly miffed about that, they were subsequently genocided by the Nazis, but the nationalists were then painted as Nazi collaborators. And so, yeah, look. If anyone gets mad at the Ukrainians for being slightly Russophobic, I'm going to be honest, if there's anyone who has a reason to be, I think the Ukrainians claim it. But not just them. You have a look throughout the entire history of the Soviet Union, you'll find that a number of different cultures completely ceased to exist. Like the Volga Germans, for example, were detained as enemy aliens. The Crimean Tatars were deported and subsequently exterminated, even though they deny it. The various Caucasian peoples, Chechens, different groups were deported, rounded up, persecuted. Their languages erased. Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, all these different countries, the only reason their languages and cultures survive today is because of their dissident movements. Quite frankly.
Yeah.
It's the only reason they survive.
It's not your language, it's not your culture, it's Russia. And if you don't speak Russian, if you don't understand the Russian language or the Russian culture, then you are not part of our you're not Soviet enough, and you must be executed.
I mean, you want to see evidence of this? I'll tell you evidence of this. I don't even need to go anywhere near it. Laserpig sitting right here is a perfect example of this very similar policy.
Yeah.
Why is Laserpig speaking to us in English instead of Gaelic? It's the exact same
because the
principle.
Gaelic language was made illegal by the English.
Yes. My ancestors told Laserpig he wasn't allowed to speak his native language anymore. Yeah. And, well, Laserpig's ancestors. And so, guess what? He speaks to me in English now. Take that, peasant! And
the reason people still speak Gaelic is because we had huge groups that moved up into the mountains that said, fuck you, try and find us. And the English could never find them.
What about you, Dylan? You're an American, but where are you from?
I'm from the great state of Maryland. Best state in the Union, old line state. We beat the British back. W. The old line state. I'm from Maryland, born and raised there, right outside of D.C. I always grew up in the DMV, the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area.
You know what, Laserpig? You know what you need to do? Right here, you need to edit that bit from Monty Python's Holy Grail. Dylan says, I'm from Maryland. We live in a swamp. We need all the land we can get. How is life growing up in Maryland? It's actually a really nice state. It's very pretty.
It was nice. I liked it. I like Maryland because I think Maryland is a fantastic microcosm of the United States. It's demographically basically a breakdown of what we have in the United States. It has a lot of geographic diversity for such a small state. It has a lot of farm areas in Cecil County. It's got dense cities in areas like Baltimore. It's also has a little bit of its territory that's like right next to the Appalachian Mountains. So we have a lot of, and of course we have Ocean City and some coastline as well. We'd have more coastline if we annex Delaware like we should, but these cowards will never do it because they have no spine, okay? When it comes to Delaware, I'm basically Curtis LeMay.
Dylan announces the special military operation to resolve the Delaware question. I'd be about that.
Exactly. Amen. Amen. We need to get rid of this tax haven, okay? Mixing all the income.
Now, the real question, though, is... Where is the mother country, as they say? Where's the homeland?
Germany and Ireland.
Wow! I did an Irish accent as a bit, but literally that makes sense.
Amen.
Dylan
also before I had to run away from a child yelling in the back. I had to run away. He was going crazy. I wanted to talk about something because I haven't seen anybody else mention it. Did you see how Russian state TV has reacted to the damn explosion? How they can't seem to get the line straight. They don't know if they're supposed to like justify it or they're supposed to deny that they did it. because they already were saying, like, on Russian state TV over and over and over in the lead up to this and to the dam explosion, that they want there to be more dam explosions. They want to target the dams. The Russian military should target the dams. Now that they've targeted the dams, you have the hosts of a lot of these shows trying to keep that narrative in line, while the guests will then go out there and be like, well, I mean, compare this to the explosion of the dam in 1941, the Dnieper Dam. That was okay when the Soviets did it. And they're trying to justify the exploding of dams while also simultaneously saying they didn't do it. But not even that, not even that narrative's held up. I saw this one segment where the people on the show were saying explicitly, they brought on like a demolition expert. He said, no, yeah, this could have only been destroyed from the inside. He was like, well, couldn't it have been like a HIMARS? He's like, no, only from the inside. That's the only way this could have happened. And they just didn't know how to cope. They just moved on. They just skipped segments. They can't keep the narrative straight on Russian state TV.
Yeah, that's because they're waiting on Putin to tell them what the narrative is, and he has been suspiciously quiet as of late.
He has been pretty quiet. I mean, on one hand, that sucks, but on the other hand, shut the fuck up.
No,
I saw a picture of him recently at his big table.
Oh boy.
He's everyone else is clustered around one end, and he is like on the other, like half a mile away from everyone else. And it's just like, how paranoid have you become that you won't even have like physical contact with people?
Wouldn't you be? Like, honest to God, if I was losing the amount of money that the oligarchs are losing, I'd kill that motherfucker myself. Jesus. God damn.
Very true.
Damn right you'd
no
be
one is
paranoid.
going to kill him. What is going to happen is someone is he's just going to be found in his office with a bullet to the back of the head, and all his generals are going to walk in, they're going to look at each other and just go, suicide, suicide.
Honest to God, like, the parallels to Stalin are remarkable, because, quite frankly, I don't see anyone. Putin has made a point of not putting anyone in his cabinet or his military possible of actually doing a leader's job. He is the only man qualified to do his job right now.
Almost like that was planned.
Yeah, almost as if that was planned, right? And so now, you know, the war in Ukraine is going horribly wrong. The generals come up to him, and Putin is sitting there thinking, oh my God, my generals and my advisors are going to shoot me. And instead, it's like a bloody Vasilevsky and all that in Barbarossa, you know, cap in hand. Comrade Stalin, we need your guidance. We need your orders. General Voroshilov is waiting for your command. What do you wish us to do, dear master? You know, he's sitting there expecting to get shot, only for his generals like Shoigu to come cap in hand and ask what they are supposed to do, oh great one. If they'd actually appointed someone competent, maybe they wouldn't have found themselves in this mess.
I remember something I heard a while ago, and I kind of giggled at the idea. I thought it was silly. Was the idea that the people around Putin will purposefully make themselves look worse in order to not look like a threat to Putin. And that was something that seemed silly to me. But the only person that makes me semi-believe it is Dmitry Medvedev. When he goes in these drunken, crazy, insane rants, the only explanation is that he's trying to show Putin again and again he's no threat whatsoever.
Okay.
He's a drunken fool.
Okay, maybe this is more targeted towards our UK viewers. But does anyone else get Tony Blair vibes from Medvedev?
No.
I swear to
because you need to understand, Tony Blair was... Like, he was a basic bitch business guru that was molded by British propaganda. He's the work of Alistair Campbell. If you've ever seen the TV show The Thick of It, that's basically what it was all about.
Come the fuck in or fuck the fuck off.
Well, I'll come the fuck in then.
Oh, but that'll probably confuse you as well, won't it? That'll be too confusing. You'll see the cross and go, oh fuck, X marks the spot. Better tell this little person all about the Prime Minister's fucking catastrophic erectile dysfunction.
It's printed. I promise I'll come back to you for a reaction quote. How's that?
Darling, I wouldn't fucking piss on you if you were fucking allergic to piss, right?
Every time he was on TV, it was scripted. Everything was curated. Even when he was out in public, it was all a performance. It was all a show. I mean, God, there was even this time where, like, to prevent a journalist asking him difficult questions, they just slowly moved this rent-a-crowd in front of that journalist, and then they just drowned him out with clapping. I mean, it was genius. It was absolute genius. No one ever saw the real Tony Blair. Medvedev is just a drunk asshole who goes on TV and rants about shit because he can't control the voices in his head.
I mean, yeah.
He needs an animal to represent him. What animal would represent Dmitry Medvedev?
Now that's okay. Oh, I know exactly what animal. I'm going to send you a picture of it.
Make sure I see it.
You'll all see it. Don't worry.
Wait for it. There it is.
Oh, that does look like him. Oh my God, you're right.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I can see it.
You see, that would imply cunning, but I don't think that he has any cunning whatsoever.
You know, now that you say it, actually, I could see some Lavrov vibes coming off of this fox.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah. Even the kind of scowl too. His face looks kind of a little bit droopy, maybe a little bit droopier face. It would have worked.
All right. What if I replaced it with this one?
That one can work. I think that's closer to Medvedev. You know, it's not passed out, you know, covered in his own piss and smelling like Smirnoff, but that's close enough.
I found a picture of Shoigu, though. I found a picture of Shoigu. There you go. There he is. There's Shoigu.
There's the hopeless little boy.
There he is. Look at that.
That is Shoigu.
That is Shoigu.
The thing is,
is this going to be shown on screen during the segment?
Oh, yeah.
Or are they
yeah.
just going to be completely in the dark? Okay, got you.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
That's
I want to pick a fursona out for Medvedev, but at the same time, like, whatever animal I pick, it's just going to be insulting to that animal, because, like, a guy who's, like, rolls around in trash all day, screams and passes out drunk, that's a possum. But I'm not going to insult possums like that.
Possums are cute.
Possums are adorable.
Not only that, we can't make his fursona a pig, because, you know, that'd be a bit awkward.
That would be awkward.
That would be way awkward.
You don't want to color the pig community like that.
No.
Especially now that we've got an official sponsorship with the Pig Racing League. Right. That's a great YouTube channel. In case you
we sponsor them.
Yeah, we sponsor them. That's what I'm saying. Like, we
sponsor the League of Pigs. Everyone go subscribe to League of Pigs now. You like pigs? You like racing? League of Pigs.
League of Pigs. I gotta go check this out.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, man.
Immediately.
You
do it now. I'll pause the podcast when you check it out.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Yeah, they're actually just racing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, here's the question, Dylan. We were talking about this before we went off on a tangent about the dynamics of the anime community. When I wanted to talk about going to Ukraine, because I'm not physically fit enough. If I was fit enough, I would almost certainly grab a GoPro and head out myself, doing what you're doing. Mainly because I don't have a real job, so like, what else am I gonna do, right? But then there came the question of, I can't imagine having that conversation with my dad, like, because I live here. Mum died 10 years ago, right? How do I tell, like, his wife dies and then his son goes up to him and goes, hey, so I'm going to go do some journalism in a war zone with the world's ostensible second largest military, on the wrong side, quotation marks. So, see you later. I'll see you when I get back in 6 months. I'm going via Poland. I don't speak the language. I have very limited funds. K, thanks, goodbye. I don't know how I'd have that conversation. How did you have that conversation?
It was weird because when I dropped this conversation because I was raised by my grandparents, so I'd have this conversation with my grandparents and my grandmother primarily first, because she was the disciplinarian, so she's the one I gotta really listen to. So I went over to her and I told her exactly what I was going to do. And I told her before I announced anything publicly. I thought that was the responsible thing to do, is to not have my grandmother find out off of some Facebook post or something. And I sat down and I said that I am going over to Poland in order to interview refugees. And there is a chance that I might cross the border into Ukraine. And that was the original plan. She completely just threw out the idea that I could go to Ukraine. I guess to her, that idea was almost impossible to comprehend, that I would be going to Ukraine. And so in her mind,
I was just going to Poland. And as the day came closer, I became more personally determined to go to Ukraine itself to interview the people affected by the war on the ground here in Ukraine. And the more I tried to breach that conversation, the more that it was basically like, nope, don't even talk about it. Like, just it was not even like a acceptable possibility. And so eventually I went over to Poland. I crossed the border into Ukraine, and when she knew I was in Ukraine, she was like, "Oh, well, I guess I can't ignore it anymore." And I don't know exactly how she was able to process that while I was not there. I tried to talk to her as much as I could about any concerns she had. I know that it was difficult on her. I know it was difficult on a lot of my family members. My grandfather was a Vietnam vet, and the second time, this is my second trip to Ukraine right now. The second time around, after he had gone and seen some of the footage that I was involved in, I think for him it clicked exactly the type of work I was doing, and he was very, very protective of me, and very thankfully he was proud of me, and I was very happy to have him say that, because I respect my grandfather a whole lot. But it was extremely difficult conversation to breach. But they understand that I feel like I need to do this work.
Yeah, I think about it, and I realize that my family would be absolutely, they would be petrified, because I'm not exactly famous for having restraint. So I know for a fact that if I got the opportunity to do what you did and, catch a truck to, a forward artillery position or something, that the Russians are actively shooting.
Hey. A broken down soccer mom fan. Thank you.
The broken down soccer fan. If I had that opportunity and the Russians were actively shooting at me, I would do it 100%. Why? Because I've got a camera on me, and this is really personal, and it's going in a podcast, but even my friends don't know this. Because of my upbringing, because of where I'm from, I have a lot of veteran friends. A lot of veteran friends. They've been shot at. They've been blown up on more than one occasion. There is a part of me that genuinely feels that to truly understand my dearest and best friends, I have to go and get shot at myself to understand. And so deep down in the back of my mind, there is this overwhelming urge in me to volunteer for frontline journalist duty and to go and see for myself. Otherwise, I'm never going to get it.
The motivations for exactly why people do this type of work are very, very diverse. I think, I think people don't realize how many different factors can push somebody to do this. On one hand, of course, there's a humanitarian angle where people want to highlight suffering in the world. Some people might, agree with what's, the promotion of democracy, the idea that Ukraine should be able to rule itself. And so that motivated them to come out here. Some of them are just like documentarians. I personally feel like just documenting what's going on so people can't lie about it afterwards. Documenting what's going on so people like 100 years from now, way after all of us are dead, can look back and be like, I wonder what the perspectives of those who experienced this firsthand, the soldiers who fought this war firsthand, what those perspectives were, what it was like on a forward operating position, what it was like during the war. They can look back and see that. That's something I know I care about a lot. But also there is an element of, and this is definitely true, of mystique and allure for some people to the front line over the idea that, it is an experience that you can only feel in a war zone. It's something that is very unique, what it's like to be shelled. And there are people who, and I'm not saying you're doing this, there are people that are extremely interested. Maybe some people would call it like war junkiism, or like, I don't know exactly how you would call it. Some people call it war tourism. I'm a little bit more charitable towards it, because I understand that if you're going to have an extremely dangerous field of work, which war journalism 100% is, you cannot get angry when somebody enjoys that type of work, right?
It's going to naturally attract somebody who either enjoys that type of work or wants to experience it for the experience, right? That is naturally going to happen in any type of field. The same thing is true about boxing, even though that's something that's extremely painful. There's a million types of jobs that are very difficult, hard jobs, either emotionally or physically, but there's still somebody who enjoys them. I even enjoy this work to some extent. While there might be a slight adrenaline rush, the enjoyment I get out of it is out of highlighting these stories. But even I will admit to the adrenaline rush being something that can be quite intoxicating, which is something you have to, reel in and be careful about, because that can lead you doing something really, really stupid in a moment of excitement.
You see, that's what I'm worried about myself in that regard. Because there is one thing, you get people, I mean, I'm gonna throw a call out, be edgy. There are people like his Twitter handle at the time, and still is now, I think, was Lord Miles or whatever, that guy who basically hung around in Kabul during
I
the
went
evacuation.
to Afghanistan during the evacuation. Isn't he currently detained by the Taliban?
Yeah, currently. He's in Afghanistan at the moment. I'm not sure what's going on there. But, there's people like him who will show up in Syria and then show up in Afghanistan and show up in all these different places and then be like, oh, I'm in a terrible situation because well, yeah, of course you are. You went there. Like, you know what you're getting into, right? But I feel like the only thing, as I said, the only thing limiting me is my physical health, because I am an idiot who didn't look after his body in his 20s. And I've ruined myself, quite frankly. I would be in your position, I think, if I had the ability to be. I would like to think so. Even now, I've thought about it. I've thought about, getting on a Fat Boy Gopher and going out there. You know what I mean? Like, seriously. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, it's that understanding. I am trained in a historical discipline. I was taught to research and study and learn about history. And I have grown up my entire life learning about war. The first book my parents ever bought me for a long road trip is a book that I'm actually using to prop up my keyboard right now. It's Time Life's Epic of Flight edition. Epics of Flight, excuse me. I've been drinking a bit. I apologize. Epics of Flight, the Luftwaffe. I was like 5 years old at the time, and I remember being in the back of the car and my parents having this moment of sheer panic, because here is this 5-year-old reading this book, and all of a sudden their 5-year-old child offers an opinion from the back seat. The lack of strategic bombing in the Luftwaffe is a real problem for them. I'm wondering how this works. I'm 5, right? This is how far back my love of military history goes, and aviation military history especially. As someone who reads, writes, and as a YouTuber earns his living off the study of war and the analysis of war, and hopefully will be going to university again to get my degree in strategic studies and war studies to become a professional in the art of war, as it were, not in the military, but as a civilian analyst. The fact that I'm sitting here in my comfy office while people are getting shelled hurts my soul to a point I can't describe. I didn't join the military when I was younger because I didn't meet the requirements for my chosen MOS, right? My chosen MOSs. Yeah. My math skills weren't good enough to be in either armor or Air Force. I'm a crap at math. Even though I'm a champ on DCS, my math skills are crap.
I'm going to put that in inverted commas. Champ.
Champ. Yeah. In Australia, that is a very derisive term. I'm an absolute champ.
I've seen you fly.
I'm good at DCS. And I'm actually quite a decent pilot IRL, believe it or not.
I'll believe that when I see it.
Well, my instructor said so. You can take it up with him.
I will. I'll fight him.
You can ask him. The registration of the aircraft I flew at the time was Golf Zulu. You can ask him.
All right, I will. I'm going now. I'm going to call him right now.
Well, it's 4 a.m. I don't think you'd get much response.
No, I was just gonna go to the water's edge and start screaming "Oi, cunt" until someone in Australia answered.
I just doxed myself. I just read. I mean, the Rego has been transferred by now. It was a Grob trainer. It was a very good aeroplane. But
I'll censor that. Don't worry.
The idea, I never served in the military, even though when I was younger, it was something I always planned to do. And you want to know what it was? I was full of piss and vinegar when I was younger, like we all are. Oh, if I'm not going to be commandos or a fighter pilot, I just won't join. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If I could go back and slap myself and says it doesn't matter if you're a jet mechanic strapping equipment into a C-130, it doesn't matter what you're doing, as long as you do something, right? I would. But that's the thing. I have never served in the military, right? And now I'm a historian and apparently a journalist, thanks to Putin's stupidity. After doing this work, I'd like to do what you do. And the fact that I'm sitting here in my office really bloody irritates me. I'm not going to lie. It's the feeling that I could be doing something more, but I'm not, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I get that feeling constantly. I don't know how to deal with it sometimes because I on many occasions feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like that, I'm not spending enough of my time out in the field. I'm spending too much time doing paperwork. Or when I go home, when I am home, all I really thought about was coming back, right? Because I was just thinking about everything that was going on, all the people I could be interviewing, all the things I could be documenting. But it's something that, people need to work within their means and what's healthy for them, what's best to fit in their lives. For me, I 100% had to just 180'd my life to come to Ukraine. I changed what I was streaming for my content online. I basically dropped out of college, which was a very not only decisive decision but expensive decision. But I made the decision ultimately because you can't really schedule when these things happen, war, conquest, these types of atrocities. So if they're happening and they need to be documented, you need to be there for when it's time for it to be documented. You can't just be like, oh, wait a second. Can everybody hold off the war? Can you give me I need to study and get my thesis paper in. I felt the calling and I came over here, and I'm very happy with the work that I'm doing, but I always feel like I can do more. So that's a feeling that I think will always be there to some extent. It's just a question of whether or not you personally can commit yourself to doing more, whether or not you're willing to make that extra mile. But ultimately, everybody, I think, bringing attention to it online is already doing more than definitely bigger channels and channels on YouTube that make content centered on this are bringing more attention to the war than 90% of people, 90 to 95% of people anyway. And I'm not trying to say that to gas you up. I'm just saying that you also need to view yourself relative also to the rest of society as well. That it's not like you're misserving Ukraine or anything. You're still helping by bringing attention to it.
You want to know what blows my freaking mind? Especially in your case, because you're actually there, therefore you are classed as a primary source. But what actually blows my mind,
I've had people email me, say, Dylan, I want to write I'm writing a paper about this. Can I use you as a source for something? That's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I've had that too. I've had people email me, and I know Laserpig has. He gets emails daily asking for his wisdom.
Oh boy, do I!
How many emails have you gotten this week?
Oh, I'd even read down. Hi, I'm writing a research paper. How do you get your sources? I was like, if you're at the point where you're writing a research paper in a university and you don't know how to look up sources,
I've been interviewed for high school history papers and shit like that. It's weird to think that all three of us at some stage, somewhere down the line, are probably going to be used as a secondary or primary source to discuss the media impact of the war in Ukraine.
Apparently,
of
there is
2022.
a history. Quite a few people have messaged me to tell me that apparently a history teacher at some point in a university did use my T-34 video as a source and played it in class.
My Tiger video got used in a high school history class. I know this. My Tiger video got used as part of the intro unit to discussing Blitzkrieg during World War II, because I explained the doctrine of Bewegungskrieg and the development of, quote, Blitzkrieg, even though the Germans never used such a term, and it's stupid. My dad's going to get mad at me for yelling at 4:30 in the morning.
That's fine. No, I mean, you're talking about how fucking people who use the term, Blitzkrieg, it was the figures. No, they never used that term.
I mean, Dylan has to deal with more Vatniks than Verabus, but trust me, they're very much the same thing.
Oh yeah, how many Vatniks?
I would imagine there's a lot of overlap, actually.
Oh yeah, there is. There is a remarkable amount of, not as much as there is an overlap with tankies. I mean, get a lot.
I mean, would you reckon? Because I've seen this personally a few times that a lot of the Vatniks are just Vatniks and on Russia's side because it seems to be what their side is doing. It's what their side supports, and it's just kind of become an extension of the culture war around them. Like it's like, oh, it's the liberals who are supporting Ukraine and everything, and it's like, so we support Russia. Have you ever kind of experienced that, Dylan? Because you obviously get a lot more hate from the Vatniks than I do.
Absolutely. There are a lot of people who I think are just contrarians. I think a lot of the like alt media personality types. I even think that might be a significant motivator for people like Tucker Carlson. It's like, this is the Biden position, therefore we're against it. I could imagine a world where Donald Trump was in office and took the same position as Joe Biden did, and he would talk about the strength of Donald Trump and how this is just more proof that Russiagate was always a hoax, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I do think it has embedded itself to some extent in the culture war, but thankfully that hasn't caught wind with like every Republican or everybody. A lot of people have been able to, in the most part, keep it outside of the culture war, but Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump, others are heavily trying to make it more of a culture war issue and connect it that way. And I think it is in large part just because the liberals. This is the quote-unquote liberal position.
Damn dirty liberals.
Because in my mind, right, Donald Trump was always the strong candidate where you show strength on the international stage, and he's so like, bombastic that no one would dare, like challenge him or fight him. But his position is like concede on everything, just give them Ukraine. And it's the exact opposite of the image that he's painted of himself. There's no consistent foreign policy to Donald Trump. I think it is just primarily contrarianism and whatever he feels like on a particular day.
And that was his track record too. I know for a fact my contacts in the US military, that sounds way more fancy than it actually is, but my contacts in the US military.
You've got some friends who are in the US military who talk to you.
Yeah, you know a guy named Steve. Yeah. He's a janitor in the U.S. military.
Yeah, I've got Pentagon contacts. Got a guy who works in the catering there.
I actually do, on the Air Force side anyway. On the Air Force side anyway. I think he's working in the defense private sector now, but he was in the Air Force Pentagon side of things. No, point is, a lot of my military friends from the United States were very heavily impacted by Trump's policy of withdrawing support for the Kurds. That was a big thing, because a lot of them had worked with the Kurds during the war in Iraq. And as such, as well as the fight against ISIS, of course. And, that move to abandon them cost him a lot of support. I mean, General Mattis resigned over that, if you recall.
Yeah, for good reason.
Yeah.
For good reason. So, it's funny that you see authoritarian leaders in the United States paint themselves as paragons of, strong foreign policy, and yet their first instinct is to cave to other authoritarian leaders, which is always, what was his one of his first diplomatic visits as president was visiting Kim Jong-un of North Korea.
But the thing is, even the Kim Jong-un stuff is crazy because he starts it off with fire and fury. I'm going to wipe your little you little like shit stain nation off the map is how he's talking about North Korea. And then next week it's like my good friend Kim, we're writing lovely letters to each other. It's just all over the place. But then by the end of the administration, the North Koreans were blowing up the South Korean liaison office live on TV, live on state North Korean television. Again, there's no consistency in his position. And the proposals that he did make during that period with Kim Jong-un to try to denuclearize them, which was what all those talks were about, even though we never saw any progress, was basically, we'll give you a McDonald's in every street corner if you give us all of your nukes, which obviously wasn't going to work. And it didn't work. And that's what led to the South Korean liaison office being blown up on state TV. Any foreign policy accomplishments during the Trump administration aren't due to him. It's either due to the people around him, and even the people around him weren't able to accomplish that much in the foreign policy field. The only thing Trump really accomplished was carrying through Operation Inherent Resolve, and he still screwed it up by betraying the Kurds at the end and causing a resurgence of ISIS.
Yeah, look, this is the thing that really makes me giggle about this, is because he is the first president. He is the first president in the history of the United States. I mean, you've had presidents done for being a bit on the perverted side. You've had presidents done for trying to rig elections. You've had presidents done for, questionable decisions regarding American foreign policy, like way back in the olden days, right? But Donald Trump is currently under investigation. The first president in the history of the United States under investigation for treason in the violation of the Espionage Act. Right? That's...
Well, he's a lot of firsts. Like, first person to get impeached twice, first person to get indicted on the campaign trail, like the way he's... Like, he's a million firsts. He keeps saying that in these posts, these Truth Social posts. Like, this has never happened to a president before, which he thinks is a good defense. But I just think that shows that he's exceptionally moronic.
Could you imagine... Like, the worst part about this is... You reckon he's going to get away with it? I think he's going to get away with it.
I have no clue, man. I wish I was a lawyer boy and I could, break down all the facts of the case. But right now he's facing, he just had the case that was settled, the case where he was found liable for sexual assault. But that's not a criminal case. That's a liability case where he's going to have to pay the woman that he was found liable of sexually assaulting money. Then there's the case that might develop, that might spring out from him calling the Georgia Secretary of State, trying to tell him, find me 11,579 votes in order so I could win the election, which is basically what happened. Even if that's not how he'll retell the event, that might develop into a case. Then we've got the Stormy Daniels case with Alvin Bragg, the DA from New York. Now we've got this case with the classified documents that he refused to hand over to the federal government because he wanted to impress people at his Mar-a-Lago beach resort. He's in a lot of trouble. He is in a lot of trouble. And whether or not he actually is held accountable and put behind bars, if he is held accountable, I don't think he'll be put behind bars. I think it'll be some plea deal where he never sees a day behind bars. There's just something in my mind that just refuses to accept the idea of Donald Trump actually in handcuffs, being held accountable for his actions, or somebody that rich and powerful actually, having to serve a day in jail.
Someone that rich and a former president, no, he'll never see prison time.
You can't talk like that. What are you, some kind of fucking commie? Jesus Christ, man. Can't say that. America always brings criminals to justice, even if they are rich and powerful. Am I right?
That is very true. Very true. Always. Always.
Don't be ridiculous. Like a third of our viewer base are absolutely fuming right now. Hi, guys.
Hi.
We're filthy
Hello.
lefty cucks ruining your life. How do you feel?
I keep getting messages from people saying, hey, I love your content, but I really wish you drop the gay shit.
Yo, you should check it out. Join Laserpig's Discord. Shill, plug. Join Laserpig's Discord and watch the Cope Gallery. I post regular updates every week of the various things I find in our comment sections. Because I have made it a hobby of mine to scan the comment sections of my friends and myself. And oh boy, I find some good ones.
If you want If you want me to balance it out so they don't think you guys are too lefty, I'm a moderate. I'm not supporting Joe Biden going into the next election. I'm supporting Hunter Biden. I think we need real generational change. And he's the only one who can do it.
Oh, that's the real story for Fox News and Tucker, everybody. It is in fact Dylan who has Hunter's laptop.
Hey man, dude, he's gonna be great on labor. Do you know how much he tipped those prostitutes, man? That's how you do it.
He's looking out for the workers of America.
That's right.
Amen.
Sex workers deserve a fair wage just like everybody else.
Okay, I know we're memeing, but this unironically unionized brothels, ladies and gentlemen. Just saying.
I don't know about unionized brothels. I mean, doesn't a brothel still imply pimps and like
not if the girls are their own, and trust me.
No. You do it the exact same way that Scotland did it. You are legally allowed to be a prostitute. You can legally sell your own body. You are legally not allowed to be a pimp. You can't sell someone else's body.
That is banger.
That is based. That's what I'm saying.
Also, you have to apply for tax.
we're gonna tax sex. Hell yeah. The end state of all social democrats, taxing sex.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
Just need to bring it to the ultimate British conclusion and have a license for it.
Oh god.
Do you have a license for that pre-cum, sir?
Just imagining the feds banging on the door for the brothel. You got a license for this prostitution, mate? Just diving into the bushes and grabbing rent boys. You got a license for that arsehole, mate?
Oh god.
Did you pay the rim job fee?
Well, if we weren't demonetized before, we sure as shit are now.
Oh, oops, sorry.
No, it's okay. We've got the bleeps. We've got the bleeps. And you know what? Formerly Susan's Empire has let us get away with some stuff before. We got away with some rather risque stuff on the last podcast. I mean, we should be okay.
We'll be fine.
We'll be fine.
Yeah, it's all right. You can't block. You can't block ad blockers anymore.
I mean, I've had my channel deleted for I think it was illegal activity. Violent threats. I think once it was terrorism. So I mean, I've
How did you get pinged for that? But what? Hold on.
What did I do? Oh, I was making terroristic threats and also on a regular basis. That's why I got it. No, I'm kidding. No, I can't even give you a justification. It was just the last one they sent me a clip for, and the clip just elaborated on nothing. It was just it was just me reacting to Ron DeSantis's like failed Twitter Space campaign launch. Right, that was it.
Oh god!
It's just. I think the automated system is garbage, or maybe mass reporting. I don't know what it is. All I can do is appeal and hope if I complain enough on Twitter very vocally that they'll pay attention. It's a very good appeal system that we have here at YouTube.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. You press the button and then nothing happens. And then if you wait a couple of months, you can keep pressing the button. You might eventually talk to someone masquerading as a real person.
Yeah, and if it happens enough times in a row, you lose your job.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to. I mean, you need to understand when you break a rule in YouTube, they don't tell you which rule you've broken. You have to guess, and if you guess wrong, they wipe your channel.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's like taxes with the IRS.
Making history documentaries, especially on World War II, is great because I never know which blurry historical footage of Mustache Man doing something is going to get me nuked.
No, I have a perpetual warning. It doesn't. I've brought it up to YouTube support before, and even the actual humans you could eventually get to speak to, I brought it up with them. It's like, yeah, that's not going away. It's just stuck there now, and it's a glitch.
Talking to the humans is sometimes even worse than talking to the robots, because I'll ask them like specific, like, you said that I violated this, but I don't, like, and you start asking about policy, and they are so restricted on what they can say, and you can feel it because they're scared that if they say anything different, that they might like change, like, the precedent on like what YouTube is willing to do for creators or what they're willing to give up in these conversations. It's very strange.
I got a strike for one of my Ukraine videos. Apparently, it was mass reported, and I made a stink about it on Twitter. And one of the reasons that strike got removed and the video was reinstated was because their bot, as well, they claim it's not a bot, but it's clearly a bot because everyone in the office that you speak to with YouTube support all have 4-letter names and all have the exact same grammar mistakes and all have the exact same typing speed. Kind of weird. Anyway, one of them was I was talking to one of them, and I said, "Okay, well, why does the bot not tell you, which policy you've violated and where in your video it has been? Because this video is a long video. I don't know where." Either what policy I violated or exactly where the offending material is, because I can go and I can remove it. You've given me that power. I can go and I can do that now. And there was like, oh, we don't do that. Why don't you do that? We don't do that because if we did that, you might find ways to circumvent it. Okay, but the copyright bot does that. Silence. Nothing. It's like, so you're telling me that your policy is you can't tell us where we violate your policies in case we find ways to circumvent it, but you're happy to do that with the copyright. So it's fine for us to find ways to circumvent the copyright bot. Silence. Nothing. Within an hour, strike removed.
Yep.
It's aggravating for me because a lot of this stuff will be happening when I'm like actively traveling. So I'm trying to like debate YouTube with shitty like middle of the countryside Ukrainian internet. I've got Ukrainian soldiers like squishing me. I'm like in the middle seat. I feel like I'm getting like I don't want to say I'm trying to say this in the least sexual way possible. I'm getting squished between two Ukrainian soldiers trying to type to these people with the worst reception in the world. Like, please give me my job. I would like to eat food. Thank you. Amen. Like it's impossible to communicate with them. I really hate it. It's one of the main reasons why I still stream on Twitch. And then I re-upload the VODs on YouTube. Is because if it wasn't for how bad the copyright system is, I would have made the transition a long time ago.
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, I've been moving a lot over to Twitch recently for the same reason. It's just, as content creators, it makes sense for us to have multiple revenue streams.
It does.
It just does. Because even though I get jack crap from Twitch, it's good to have that presence there where I'm always around, and it's slowly been growing. Whether I get a partnership with Twitch or not, we'll see. I applied for it. We'll see how that goes.
We'll see that happen. I mean, I'm slowly...
you applied for partnership?
Yes, I did.
Welcome to the club. Here's your chains. Have a good time.
It's gonna be fun, isn't it?
I need to get Min in here at some point and tell us all about what it's like streaming long term on Twitch.
Look, the worst part about it is, right, I make content if I had my way. And I know this sounds strange to people who watch our podcast for, just the shenanigans and the memes. Ironically enough, this podcast pays the bills a lot of the time for us. For some reason, you guys like us. Thank you. We appreciate you. But the thing is, if we try to make the content that you want, like historical documentaries, honest to God, Laserpick, when you make a documentary that even remotely touches on World War II or even World War I, how often do you get a green check mark straight out the gate?
Never.
Never.
Absolutely never. We never get it.
We always have to apply to have it reviewed before we can upload it.
I get it. I don't know. I think I get like 50% of the time. Which I think is okay.
I've never once gotten a green check mark straight out of the gate, especially when it comes to like World War II documentaries. There's always something. Someone's always trying to claim a copyright. Like we were talking about that earlier, weren't we, Animarchy? About specific patent. There's specific patent trolls. There's a name that keeps popping up every now and again. A certain group who are basically a patent troll. What they do is they copyright old documentaries, or they get the distribution rights to them, and then they add them to the YouTube copyright system and then claim that all the footage in that documentary is theirs. So if you use like any kind of old footage from like the wars or whatever, they now think that is their copyright, and they will leave you there for a full 2 fucking months before finally they will release the claim. I have to literally threaten to sue these fucking people before they back off.
It's bad, man. And the thing is, all the protections that they say that they give you, like, it feels like 90% of the time there's no consideration put into it. The most obvious example, I think, is fair use, where they explicitly say that fair use is protected, but the copyright system seems to put zero effort into trying to analyze if it's fair use or not. It's just, if, oh, it's copyright material, okay, we're going to strike it. No analysis. There's no human reviewing it, so they can't see that it's fair use. And because there's no human reviewing it, people get screwed out of a lot of income, because those first 24, 48, 72 hours as a YouTuber is super important for views. That's where you're going to get like 60, 70% of the views on a lot of your YouTube videos.
Yeah.
This is why I never publish my video on time, ever. Unless it's one of my reaction videos to Call of Duty or whatever, 9 times out of 10, my video is done like a week in advance, and I can't release it because YouTube is still working out what's wrong with it. I'm getting pretty good at bamboozling the old copyright system, right? With clip editing. But the problem is you'll get manual claims, and manual claims are really annoying. So I make it a solid policy of never to publish a video until it's been up for like 48 hours, right? And even then I've been caught before.
That's the weirdest, is when you've had like a video uploaded for like a week, and then right when you release it, oh, copyright strike.
Yeah.
0 cents.
I've had copyright strikes on like unlisted videos.
Yeah.
Like, they've been sitting there for like shit I did when I was younger, and I just did a stupid video and uploaded it, never showed it to anyone, and it's sitting there with like 0 views, unlisted, private video, and then like last week I get like a fucking copyright notice on one of them, and I'm like, what? it's bizarre. And then sometimes they'll just revise their like YouTube does this. They did it previously, didn't they? They revised one of their policies and then decided to retroactively apply it to every single video.
Oh, it's the worst.
In business, you can't do that. Legally, you can't do that. You're already, I mean, banning me off the platform is typically not actually legal, because in Britain, you can't take away someone's primary source of revenue. So if you're out driving like a taxi or a minicab, the reason those fuckers get away with so much shit is because they can't, when they fucking park badly, or they fuck up, or they get arrested or whatever, they can't tow the car away, because that's their livelihood, that's their income. You can't get rid of it. And the same kind of applies to YouTube. And all I need is a judge to sit down and say that, yeah, YouTube is your main revenue stream. That's how you make your living. And then it's illegal for YouTube to basically ban me off the platform, to take that away from me. I doubt I'd ever be able to swing that, because I have a decent lawyer on retainer, but he's not that good.
And here's the other thing, of course. That makes it a bit weird. For us, it's really, really dodgy. For Dylan as well. Dylan would be very susceptible to this. Is the fact that a lot of our content is regulated. A lot of our content is regulated by the fact that we have like a high level of audience participation, shall we say, right? Which means consequentially, again, this is a bit esoteric, but Joey the Anime Man, right, is a member of the Trash Taste podcast. He's, several million subscribers on YouTube. There was a good chance at one stage that his main channel would get deleted, because he had made several reviews on his channel of like hentai manga, right? And he had censored them. Like, there was nothing explicit in them, right? But all of a sudden, 2 of his videos got community guideline strikes straight out the gate, retroactively. Like, they'd been up on his channel for like 3 years or something. And they got community strikes, like one after another. Bang, bang. For those of us covering the war in Ukraine, there is a good chance that at one moment, if YouTube changes its policies, or it almost happened to Perrin, actually, believe it or not. Like the moment like YouTube could change a policy or decide what's happening on the Ukraine content at the moment, and they can suddenly like ban half of us instantly if they choose to.
It's terrifying because, by the way, okay, you win, Laserpig, Annie. I'm a communist now. You win. Workers of the world unite. I hate corporations.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's terrifying because if YouTube was to change its policy and sync my YouTube channel, I don't really know of many competitors that I could go to that I feel like that I would have a large enough audience that I could do this full time.
They're on
Rumble is not very friendly, I think, to the takes that I have on the war. A lot of the other platforms that people talk about are just not that big, don't have nearly the same size audience, and the audience pool that is available there, again, would not be sympathetic about the things that I have to say. Maybe that would be fun to just make an account just for that reason, but for income reasons, it's just not good. And that's why it's always so terrifying to have your channel just kind of like thrown up in the air for like bogus claims, and also unbelievably frustrating. At least if I violated a policy and I knew that I did it, then I can't really blame anybody but myself. But a lot of these situations, you're just kind of sitting and just hoping and waiting to see if your, job's going to just disappear overnight for something you could have done nothing to prepare for because it was a blatantly like false copyright strike. And if they change the system to not allow me on there, man, I don't know where I would be able to do this type of freelance journalism and make enough income from it. Without the Patreon and YouTube stuff, couldn't do it.
No, that's it. That's basically it.
Does that terrify you?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, if that happened to me, I think I would have to throw my weight 100% behind just getting a normal, like trying to get hitched with a bigger publication, maybe here in Ukraine, or just something to keep me afloat. But that's going to be a hard pitch for me because, my content is not, New York Times content. It's stuff that is done a certain way that I like. I like that creative freedom. I like that ability to make content the way I want to make it. And it's not accustomed for, articles on the New York Times. That's not what it's made for. So I would have to significantly change the type of content I do. And I'd probably end up making less money at the end of the day anyway, for like probably 6 or 7 times more effort.
Yep.
The thing is, the way you've just described it, you now share the same feeling as every gay and trans person in America right now. And even here in Britain and Europe. You never know when some fucking fat-arse politician is just going to come along and in order to win more votes from Susan and the Sunday Squad is just going to literally just wipe out all the rights that you have. And then how do you live?
I have good news when it comes to that from where I live. I live in Maryland, and Governor Westmore, I was actually at his election night party when he won. He just made Maryland a sanctuary state for trans people. With some of the strongest, if not the strongest, protections for trans people in the entire country. Very happy with my home state right now.
Receive a lot of refugees because I know a lot of people who are pretty desperate in need of help.
Hey, Maryland wants you. Come to Maryland. Help our economy.
I find it rather dark that when I talk to half of my friends and half of LP's mod team, believe it or not, and it's just like, hey, how does it feel that half of your country decides you don't actually exist? It's always fun. That's always a good one.
It's great when you have a whole legion of people, thousands, millions strong potentially, who will just sit there and debate all day, every day about which bathroom you're allowed to use. I've got a trans friend who wrote a poem just called "Let Me Pee in Peace."
God, we talked about how we weren't going to get too controversial at the start of this stream.
I don't care. Being trans shouldn't be a fucking controversy.
Yeah, just about it. Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's just one of those things where I sort of think about it. I'm lucky. We've been lucky to have a renaissance here in Australia. Just about. Our Prime Minister is the first Prime Minister in history to march in the Mardi Gras parade. Thank Christ.
So we had things going for us in Scotland. Everyone was very, very sort of gay positive and open about it, and we had gay rights like long before anyone else. And yet, then some fucking asshole writer who writes a very popular book about a wizard suddenly decides that, oh, I don't like trans people anymore. And there's this whole fucking movement. And it's like, why did you have to be born in this country?
Oh, God.
Yeah. I mean, if they weren't born in the UK, where should they have been born?
An island somewhere.
Well, the UK is an island.
God, it is. Fuck it. We're the trash island of Europe, isn't it? This is it. This is just what the UK is. Europe sends its fucking trash to us and supplies us with guns and drugs and just lets us fucking get on with it.
You know what? This is time for why St. Helena should be incorporated into the Union. We put Napoleon there. Can we put JK there too?
Do you guys remember when this was a Ukraine podcast?
Yeah.
I had a document here that said questions for Dylan, and it just all I've got written down is ask about the landmines because that sounds interesting. Ask about Russia. Why does everybody hate Russia? Add in story about boyfriend. I fucking won't talk about that. This is stuff left over from that we didn't talk about the previous.
If you want, I can talk a little bit about the situation here when it comes to landmines in Ukraine.
Yeah, because I did see on your video that when you were flying around, a lot of those mines were booby trapped.
Which video that I posted?
I can't remember. It was one of them.
One of the ones I posted on Twitter.
I think you were actually sharing it to us live. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, I sent you some of the footage before I released it.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of these mines were booby trapped. We actually, when we were doing the filming process, some of the CESU workers in our area were killed by booby trap mines. 5 TM62 anti-tank mines placed upon each other. So when they removed the first one on top, the other ones go kaboom, and it ended up killing some people, injuring others. And other sappers in the area, military sappers, were killed during that same period too, again by booby trapped mines. A lot of anti-personnel mines, sometimes placed in civilian homes. A lot of anti-tank mines and anti-personnel mines, PMF-1 butterfly mines that have been laid near civilian homes. I watched them use demining vehicles to blow up anti-personnel mines that were no further than 20 feet from somebody's front door.
Jesus.
Where civilians were actively living in there. And these PFM-1 butterfly mines are notorious for how they maimed and killed civilians in Afghanistan due to how much due to how many they throw everywhere. They're designed to maim people and injure people, not kill them. And they kind of look like toys, and so children often mistake them for toys, pick them up, and then blow off their arm. That happened a lot in Afghanistan, and that is also still an issue today. Thankfully, there are a lot more on top of putting billboards everywhere, like, do not touch this. This might just look like plastic, but it is a mine, and now it's become more notorious. But the PMF-1 mines are everywhere, man. I must have found more. I mean, I don't know. I can't give an exact number, but too many to count. Same with the anti-tank mines. They're overwhelming everywhere as well. The video you saw, though, was of a Mon 50 mine being disabled, which is basically like the Russian version of an American Claymore. It was actually placed next to power lines that needed to be restored in order for local villages to get power again in the Kharkiv Oblast. The situation in Ukraine when it comes to demining is a humanitarian catastrophe. 4 months ago, the estimation I was given, and this is if the war ends 4 months ago, 70 years to clear all of the mines.
Jesus.
Now, that was if the war ended 4 months ago. So the estimation we're talking about now is more than 70 years. We're talking like 70 to 100 years is the vague range. And obviously that number can continue to go up the longer this war goes on. I can say, though, that there are innovations happening in the field of demining. Some of those innovations are happening here. I hear a lot of rumors about ground penetrating radar, but a lot of this is untested technology that has not been proven to work on a scale that would massively change the power balance and help the deminers do their job better. A lot of the deminers are having problems getting just basic equipment at times. They need more demining vehicles, and those are things that cannot just be fundraised on Twitter.com. That's something that needs larger institutions, either national governments or NGOs, to back the funds in order to get more demining vehicles to Ukraine. The drones are stuff that can be fundraised, but those are also very expensive. But now an essential tool for the deminer, as they can be used to spot drone like mines, whether anti-tank or anti-personnel, from above. And it is in every single demining operation I've worked in. The drones, well, not worked in, but filmed. The drones were an essential part of the demining process. Which you couldn't say 20 years ago, but is 100% the case in Ukraine. I've even seen, and there's only so much I can say because a lot of the stuff I had said to me was with people working in NGOs with no visibility contracts. So I couldn't film these people, and I can't really say who they are. But I did see people taking drones with pre-coordinated courts, like routes over fields, farm fields, and they would go above it, like maybe like 50 feet above the ground, maybe 30 to 50 feet, take pictures in a pre-programmed route all around the field, and then bring back a map where they could identify all the mines in that field, and they can use that to like identify 100 to 150 mines in like a single go. And that type of technology, that is, I think, something, while that's not 100% new in Ukraine, they've been testing this type of stuff in Libya and other war zones before. That's the type of stuff that I think could really change the power balance in favor of the deminers, which they only have like 4,000 to 5,000 operating in the entire country. At the same time, when the environmental minister of Ukraine saying that 1/3 of the country is mined, literally 1/3 of the entire country.
Jesus. So this is not a situation that's going to go away quickly. Those mines are going to be around for a long time. Then
we're talking about a Cambodia situation.
Oh God.
I mean, they're still demining Yugoslavia or former Yugoslavia to this day, just about.
The thing is before this war started, even before 2014, the demining crews in Ukraine working in emergency services, they would be fulfilling tons and tons and tons of requests, thousands of requests for munitions from World War I and World War II, which are still a danger during this war as well. And so what we have happening is we got the World War I bombs and World War I munitions. Then we got the World War II munitions on top of that for the war that happened 20, 30 years later. And now we've got these bombs, these mines on top of that, just layers upon layers upon layers of explosives.
I mean, EOD techs in France and Belgium still respond to World War I ordnance every year.
Yeah, it's a real problem, and it's only being made like 10 times, 100 times worse by the war, and it's probably only going to get worse since we don't really see an end in sight, and demining doesn't seem to be the main focus of international humanitarian efforts, and we're seeing how not resolving this issue can make other natural disasters even worse. For example, the Novokakhovka Dam explosion caused massive flooding in the areas around Kherson, and a lot of the mines that were placed in that area were swept away and moved, meaning that let's say the Ukrainians placed defensive mines and they had an idea where they were, so if they ever wanted to go demine them, they could. Now they don't know where they are. And that also moves Russian mines that they could have previously identified, and they know where they are, but they hadn't gone out and cleared it. And now those have been moved, and so that work's undone. And of course, if you're walking through these, walking through all these water, you don't know like what's at the bottom of the water you're stepping on, you're stepping through.
We did see pictures, because originally when the dam exploded and there was reports of explosions going off around where the aid workers were. Someone shared a video. I've probably mentioned this earlier. Someone posted a video of sea mines getting swept into buildings and exploding. And I, for one, thought that was what the quote-unquote artillery shells dropping around these aid workers actually were. It turns out they were actually being shelled by the Russians, but is that because I thought mining the Dnipro River was kind of weird. I didn't understand how sea mines could work like that, because whatever. But is that what we're seeing? Is that what half of these explosions are? It's just mines that are being basically swept up by the current and then pushed downstream.
I don't know if any of the mines have gone off. I haven't seen any evidence of the mines going off, but I also haven't done any digging, so that could be there. I just haven't seen it. But I have seen the mines moved by the currents, and that is enough to be a concern. That knowing that that's happening is already a concern, because that means now all of the mines that have been that this water, this cascading effect of flooding has now touched, is essentially like the mining maps are now useless, or could be effectively useless, where maybe a few of them would still be, oh, they stayed here, thank goodness. A lot of them are going to be made useless, though.
And those mines are now being swept out to sea and may wash up on a beach somewhere.
Maybe. I don't know about that. But I do know that they are getting pushed around.
Well, we're getting debris washed up on beaches from this disaster.
That is true. I saw the roofs and the couches and stuff.
Yeah, so, I mean, it can push a house, it can wash up a mine, you know. You never know where they could end up.
I have zero reason to object.
And that is a big tourist hotspot, the Black Sea.
No.
It's kind of incredible, the fallout from this war, for lack of a better term. So let's hope that doesn't become a literal term.
Oh, God.
Is going to be far larger than I think anyone really understands. There are a lot of people who are reporting the war in Ukraine, and there are a lot of people who are watching Ukraine develop. But I don't think, unless you're someone who has sort of read into European history, I don't think a lot of people realize just how much of a watershed moment this war is. Really?
Mm-hmm.
People don't understand the political, geographic, and socioeconomic and geopolitical significance of this war. And why, consequentially, Ukraine has to win it. Why we must ensure they win it. Because there is a lot more at stake than people understand, I think.
I mean, I hate to make a reference to the Nazis in World War II, but it is a pretty strong parallel of what is currently going on. I mean, if we need to understand that Hitler rose to power, and it wasn't because of the Versailles Treaty. It wasn't because everyone in Germany turned evil magically overnight. They saw an idiot with a mustache standing on a podium and went, yes, we're evil now. We hate the Jews. There wasn't anything like that. It was... He was allowed to get away with what he was doing for so long. No one stood up to him. We had a bunch of pacifists who just kept kowtowing and bowing to him and just allowing him to get away with it to preserve the sake of peace and to preserve future generations and to say no to war and everything and to try and they let him get away with Austria. They let him away with Czechoslovakia, and it wasn't until Poland that we finally said no. And by the time Poland came on, we called Poland the phony war because we didn't fucking do anything to help Poland. And by the time it got to that point, it was too late. And the thing is, we could be saying the same to Putin right now. I mean, every time Putin has responded to us with aggression, Europe and America has backed down. We have always backed down. We've always backed down to Putin. We've let him get away with so much fucking bullshit. And this is the first time. The only reason he's done this in Ukraine is because he genuinely thought we wouldn't respond. He genuinely thought we would just hand Ukraine to him for the sake of peace, for the sake of preserving the peace. And the thing is, if we'd allowed that, he would have made his plan. He would have taken that area where the Black Sea is. He would have taken Mariupol and Odessa and everything and left that area of Ukraine alone for the next couple of years. And then he would have taken that. And then he would have moved into Transnistria and where else? And Moldova. And maybe start poking at Estonia next. You know, there has to be a point where you have to say that there has to become a point where you have to realize that negotiating with people like Putin is not peace, that's appeasement. And appeasement does not work.
What really gets me about the idea that, you know, we need to save a generation from war, definitely when we're talking about this war, in my mind and from my conversations from people, talking to people here on the ground in Ukraine, they give me the implication of they are fighting for those future generations who they want to save from war. Because if they don't win the war now, they're going to have to win the war 20 years from now when it starts again, or 10 years from now when it starts again. And they're just dooming another generations of Ukrainians to the long-desired struggle for independence that they're kicking the can down the road of by passing this down to another generations of Ukrainians. Like, if they can negotiate Russia's leaving the country, of course, negotiate them leaving the country. The problem is that the Russian position right now is so unbelievably ridiculous that negotiations right now would entail Zelensky saying, "Give me back my country," Russia saying, "No, in fact, give us all your weapons," and then they both walk out of the room.
Yeah. No, you can't negotiate. I mean, Russia knows what the peace terms are. They've known. I mean, Ukraine has been very open with what those peace terms are since day one, and the ball is entirely on their court. Ukraine doesn't have to do anything. It's it's entirely on Russia to do what Ukraine asked them to, which is just leave, go away, and if they leave, the war ends. Because Ukraine is not going to follow them into Russia and invade Moscow. I mean, a lot of people are memeing that we wish they would, and to a certain point they have. But I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here.
I think I can jump in here on that point. I think the thing is, the original agreement between Russia, the United States, and Ukraine in 1991 was that Ukraine would remain a neutral state. It would surrender its nuclear arsenal, and that Ukraine's territorial sovereignty would be respected in exchange for its independence and its neutrality. That was an agreement they reached in 1991. Since then, Russia has violated that agreement no less than 3 different times in transparent ways. If you include the war and all the microaggressions in between, more than like 10 or 20 times. Right? Strictly speaking, under the rules and regulations and the terms of the treaty, the United States should have intervened directly when Putin invaded. Under the terms of the 91 treaty, we offered a security guarantee to Ukraine back then.
You ask yourself, if we had intervened that very first time when Putin had broken that contract, if we had put the hammer down and said no, would they have done it any more times? Or have they just kept doing it and kept pushing and kept pushing and kept pushing because of our complacency?
Could you imagine? Yeah, that's the interesting point. Would this war have taken place if, after the Donbass situation heated up, after Euromaidan, if NATO peacekeepers had entered Ukraine straight out the gate? If the US had signed a military cooperation treaty with Ukraine and deployed a US military force to Ukraine at the time in 2014. If they had done that, would this war be happening now?
No.
The answer very obviously is no. No way.
Honestly, I don't even think it would require that much intervention. I think if we just had the position that we've had on aid over the last 6 to 8 months, and we had that position in 2014, we'd be in a completely different situation now. If all of the aid that we have now started to finally send Ukraine in larger amounts, we started sending them 2014, 2015, when these questions of lethal aid was first being asked of the Obama administration, this war would be in a completely this war would be completely different. The amount
Russians
of territory
wouldn't have
they
made
would
it
have.
anywhere near as far as they have.
Absolutely.
And this is the point. People wonder why my stance on Ukraine is so aggressive. Well, let me put you 2 points. Before the war started, I was one of the bad guys. Before this war started, I was a peace at any price neutral guy. I was saying, look, Russia has a dog in this fight because, let's be honest, look, I'm a lefty. I'm very much against the expansionism of any kind of military organization across the world. It goes against my core political principles. I believe in sovereignty of individual communities, let alone nation states, right? So, I'm not a big fan of NATO, despite the ironic position that puts me in, right? I'm not a big fan of the US military either. Again, a weird situation given the position I'm in. But at the same time, whenever I get people calling me an anarcho-NATOist, which is, yes, the anarchists and the libertarian lefties will immediately defect to the evil imperialist fascists the moment something like this happens. Well, let me put it to you this way. During the Second World War, the United Kingdom, Great Britain, due to their political policies, was responsible for the mass starvation and death of several million Indians. Bengalis, specifically. That is something that the UK denies, and British nationalists today deny, but it is something they did.
Yeah, I don't deny it.
Okay?
I do not deny it. I'm very much aware that happened. And
now, exactly, but here's the point. Does that mean that I will switch over and go, well, obviously, that means that that Adolf guy in Germany has a point? Fuck no! I sat on the fence and I was saying, look, Russia has some concerns, like NATO expansionism is perhaps an issue. The intervention in Yugoslavia was a bit of a muddy area. Maybe, putting NATO tanks a day's drive from Moscow might be a bit of an escalatory position. Maybe we should sit down and talk about this. And then Putin decides to launch a full-scale invasion and conduct what can only be described as ethnic cleansing. He's kidnapped orphaned children and forced them into Russification in Russia. As an Australian who is living with the effects of what my country did to our indigenous people, I've had too much to drink, but I'm going to be blunt. Do people comprehend what this is? I tried being the neutral pacifist. I tried being the guy who looked at both sides. By doing what he's doing, Putin has invalidated any excuse he had whatsoever. None. And the fact that we have to sit day after day listening to these people on the internet justify it. No.
There is no justification for it, but that's the thing. Have you ever met a proper neo-Nazi?
I've fought them in the streets more than once. Actually, I during Australia's struggle for the rights of LGBT people to get married, I got into more than one physical altercations with members of what they were calling themselves the True Blue Crew. If any of my fellow Aussies remember that group, yeah, I am well acquainted with fucking neo-Nazis.
Yeah, I may have had a similar experience when the British Nazi Party was still a thing. Sorry, there's the British National Party.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They were still a thing. There was a bit of a fight here in Edinburgh on the Royal Mile. No, if you actually sit down and speak to a neo-Nazi, because I have, and I find their positions intriguing, because I always like, how can you justify this? And the thing is, and I have kind of noticed this with the Vatniks as well, they don't start by justifying Nazis. They don't start by justifying the Nazis or Nazi Germany or Hitler's policy or the Holocaust or anything like that. They start by telling you how evil everybody else is in comparison. How evil the British are, how evil the Americans were, how horrible the French were and the Dutch were to their colonists, and like the imprisonment and the slaves and the campaigns of horror and the original concentration camps. That's where they start. Everybody else is evil. And once they've managed to make you realize just how evil everybody else is, suddenly Nazi Germany doesn't seem so bad. And that's how they start to get you. That's how they start to drag you down into their fucking mud pit. And I've noticed the exact same with Vatniks. They never start with justifying Putin's policies or the war crimes or even the invasion of Ukraine. They start by telling you how fucking evil America is and how horrible NATO is and all the shit that they've done. And they usually start with Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia, the war in Kosovo and everything. And then they move on to Afghanistan and Iraq and everything like that. And they'll talk about that for hours and hours and hours before they get to the war in Ukraine, because they want you to believe that everybody else is Russia's not as evil as all these other people. In fact, what they're doing is fairly normal. It's fairly common. And that's how they operate. That's how they work.
It's one of the big points, because Vatniks only ever have, and this is the same thing as tankies. Their sole political position of a tankie is America bad. That is it. Or Western imperialism bad. And it doesn't matter what it is. They'll justify Pol Pot. They'll justify Bashar al-Assad. They'll justify Saddam Hussein. They'll justify Gaddafi.
I mean,
My
Dylan,
favorite one.
go ahead.
This is the best one. I'll send you a link to this later. You can put a link to it in chat if you like.
Oh, I'd love to.
My favorite one is from a Trotskyist organization, the Spartaites. And for those of you who are confused or not educated, Trotskyists are tankies that are mad they didn't get to be tankies. That's it. Trotskyites
You're not fucking wrong.
They're not mad about the purging and the Holodomor and the death camps and everything like that. They're not mad about that. They're mad about the fact that their guy wasn't the one doing it. And I used to be one. I've not shied away from the fact that I used to be a tanky. And yes, before this war started, I was repeating a lot of the lines that Russian propaganda repeats now. And there's a reason for that. Because when you're locked in that mindset of criticizing American interventionism, like Dylan was saying earlier, when you've been criticizing American interventionism and a lot of the other things that NATO has done and a lot of the other things that, you know, the UK and other countries have done over the years, and of course you're a lefty in my case, so you have a lot of personal beliefs that conflict with the mainstream narrative, you're willing to make excuses. You're willing to sit there and go, oh, you know, this is a two-sided issue. This is a problem. This is a multifaceted concern. And of course, it doesn't help that during Euromaidan, quite frankly, there were a lot of reactionary elements in Ukraine. In revolutionary states, there always are. The reason why Russian propaganda focuses so heavily...
I hate to interrupt you, but I'm actually releasing an interview very soon, probably in the next, definitely within the next 5 or 4 days, with a right sector fighter who was fighting since 2014, under the idea that I believe that by showing very clearly what this ultranationalist ideology is and shining a light on what right sector is today, it can kind of get... kind of wipe away a lot of the propaganda around it and give people more clear primary source about what these types of fighters, the more ideologically devoted members, are like. Because they're far right, they're ultra-nationalists, but they don't have the influence the Russians say they have. They failed miserably in 2019 to garner any political support. All the nationalist parties, Svoboda, Right Sector, they all put all their forces together, Azov's National Corps, in order to just get into the Rada, get 5%. They got 2.3, right? But that doesn't mean that the subculture doesn't exist in the military and should still be documented. But I think light is the best disinfectant, and I'm really excited to release it.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. I'm looking forward to it too, because as a lefty and then being a historian on top of that, specializing in the Second World War, it was very, very hard initially before the war started, because you'll see images of Azov and you'll see Pravy Sektor and you'll see all those groups, and you also know the history of Stepan Bandera and the Waffen-SS movement and the collaboration of the Ukrainian nationalist movement with Nazi Germany during the Second World War, which is a tough topic. It's a very complex topic.
It is. But the thing is, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to make apologies for the Azov Legion and for all the shit that they believe in and some of the stuff that they've done. I'm well aware of their policies and ideology, and I'm not going to sit here and defend it and say that, yes, these people were in the right and we need it. The thing is, what is the Azov Legion? It's like pre-war. It was like, 1,500 people?
Just about.
It's about.
Just about.
Yeah, so these people are running around, being dumb, shouting their dumb opinions, making videos themselves, stamping their chests and going, wow, whatever. Russia's actively committing genocide.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I've put this thought experiment in front of people before, but if Alaska was being invaded right now by the Chinese or the Russians, pick your enemy, whatever, and they were calling for people to mobilize and head to Alaska to help defend Anchorage or whatever, and you were on a bus and you looked around you and there were members of QAnon there with you, holding guns, ready to defend freedom, ready to defend the American way of life, the American flag, would you tell them to get off the bus and go back home? Or would you send them to the front line?
That, unironically, I've described most most of the ideologically devoted right sector fighters, or the ones that, maybe even aren't that ideological, but hold some favoritism towards Ukrainian ultranationalism, because there are members who join because either they can't, well, this used to be the case before they were integrated. They joined because they had lower standards. They wasn't as stringent. So let's say you got an injury in combat, you might go join right sector because the official Ukrainian military won't take anymore. But for the ones that are ideologically devoted, they remind me most of like the far right like American militia types, like the 3%ers. They remind me somewhat like that. That's what they remind me of. But also, we all know if America was invaded, I don't think anyone would be complaining if they started like if they threw themselves into the front lines against whatever invading force had stepped on American soil.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of those interesting
Gonna get
things.
my charger. I'll be right back.
It's one of those interesting things when you discuss it, because when I talk about my position before the war and then my position after it started, a lot of people were caught by surprise at how quickly I threw my support behind Ukraine. They thought, well, how can you go from being neutral, even slightly pro-Russia, to completely pro-NATO and pro-Ukraine, right? And the answer was very simple.
Yeah.
There is a difference between negotiating, if Putin had thrown in peacekeepers into the Donbass and then there was an international crisis summit in the UN and this war didn't happen, we would all be a fucking footnote.
Yeah.
Frankly.
I've got an even easier answer there for you. And it's the same answer that I give all the time, anytime I meet one of these Vatniks in the wild. Like, anytime they start their spiel about what Ukraine did, and about the Azov Legion, and about the Nazis, and the whatever, and how evil NATO is, NATO expansion, whatever, I just repeat the same line. Russia's actively committing genocide.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Britain has a fucking monarchy. It doesn't matter if America did the Trail of Tears and slavery, and it doesn't matter if the Dutch East India Company committed absolute mass genocide. It doesn't matter if Britain slaughtered millions, potentially absolute millions of Indians. It doesn't matter if NATO has gradually expanded and threatened Russia. Russia is actively committing genocide. That is the one line. That is what we are trying to prevent. We're not trying to blow up fucking Russia because we're racists. We're not trying to increase the fucking power of NATO over yet another small Eastern European country. No, we're trying to prevent a genocide. Russia is actively committing genocide. Children have gone missing. About something ridiculous like 30,000 people are still missing. I've seen the bodies. I've seen the pictures. We have more evidence of this genocide than we do about the fucking Holocaust.
And we've still got the camps for those.
We still have the camps.
Yep. But of course, the same old story, the same old refrain.
Yeah.
Because as someone who's recovered from it, I can tell you the power of propaganda when you're in it is exceedingly overpowering.
It is.
It's ridiculously overpowering. Like, when you're part of a movement, when you grow up in a world surrounded by what amounts to, for lack of a better term, Western chest thumping, right? You've got Ollie North on Fox News rolling with the Abrams over the border of Iraq, gung-ho, let's go, bombing villages and crap like that. When you grow up in that environment, you develop an extremely nihilistic view of our own countries. And you sort of want to sort of find, it's the old story, the grass is always greener. When you sort of find yourself being bombarded with that all your life.
Yeah.
You try everything, and it's only when you're confronted with the reality of that ideology, the old song goes, whose side are you on? So, George Orwell Kraut, our mutual friend, mentioned this in his video regarding American imperialism over the years. When you have a position of neutrality or a position of pacifism in the face of imperialist aggression, that position is inherently pro-aggressor, or in this case, pro-fascist.
Yes.
Pro-fascist oligarch. You say, like, you got to understand the big reason why Putin's pushing the Azov angle and the denazification angle so strongly, as I mentioned in my propaganda video, is because to lefties like me, tankies especially, but to all lefties generally, we are inherently based in anti-fascism. We hate fascists. And by leveraging the existence of Pravý Sektor and Azov, he can get an endless army of useful idiots. Including me, as I said, including me initially. When this was starting to happen, I pointed out that the West had a very softball reaction to Azov and Pravý Sektor. And because of my history background, I of course knew about the Waffen-SS Galicia and the Ukrainian nationalist movement's collaboration with the Holocaust. So, you know, to a young lefty who knows about, you know, those particular issues, I was very susceptible to the Kremlin's narrative. And so I bought it. Of course. Because America bad, NATO evil, and Azov Nazi bad. So, of course, I can ignore all the bigger issues, and I can just go along with the Kremlin's narrative. And if it will stop America from doing America things, then all well and better.
Yeah, because America is the aggressor here. America is the imperialist nation.
Of course, America bad.
What gets me is, like, since day one of this war back in 2014, there have been neo-Nazis fighting on the Russian side of this war. Specifically organized under neo-Nazi formations. And that's the distinction some people will try to make. Well, the difference is Azov is a military unit, and specifically with the symbol. But no, Rusich has existed since basically the start of this war, a neo-Nazi Russian militia. I've always expressed to people that this war has nothing to do with Nazism. The Nazism angle has always been propaganda. It has always been a way to rally the people. Slavs, for good reason, hate the Nazis because the Nazis tried to kill all of the Slavs. The Nazis hated Ukrainians. The Nazis hated Russians. And so it's really easy to convince somebody to go fight Nazis. So if you can make them think they're fighting Nazis, then you've got a propaganda W. That's the purpose of Nazis being brought up, even though they make up such a small portion of the Ukrainian military overall, and even of the ultranationalists in question. Like, a lot of them are far right, but they're not even what you would describe, if we're being honest, like as Nazis. They're like weird, like militia types, but it has to be Nazis, and they'll describe them specifically as Nazis, even if there isn't any anti-Semitism with them, because the question is about anti-Russianness, and that's what they're trying to get across. It isn't really about like the ideology of fascism or Adolf Hitler's Nazism. It's about anti-Russianness, and that's how they've always described Nazism. And that's why there's no contradiction to them that a Nazi state is being led by a Jewish leader whose country instituted protections for LGBTQ plus workers in 2015. I don't know of many Nazi states that instituted protections for LGBTQ plus employees.
Yeah. And that's what's really distressing me, because I bought into that line because, quite frankly, as, you know, a lefty who specializes in World War II, the pathological hatred of Nazis runs very deep. And so the idea that I could even be on the same side as Pravý Sektor or Azov, right? It just... No, impossible. Me on the same side as these people. Me on the same side as America. Impossible. But the fact of the matter is, when you look at what... You want to know what's weird? And this is me coming from my particular case personally. But I'll tell you what's weird. it felt like when I look back at me now, I realized something really insidious in that the same sort of propaganda that afflicted Soviet citizens and that afflicted German citizens under Nazi Germany was the same thing that afflicted me. Where you know what you're saying and what you're doing is bullshit. You know it. Deep down you do. But the idea of compromising your political identity, the idea of compromising your position is just so anathemic. You don't want to do it. Right? Because if I admit to the fact that I hate Russia and that I don't want this to happen and that I actually want to support the United States in this case, means compromising all of the other positions I've held. Even though I knew those positions were wrong, deep down, right? And that's what I think a lot of it is. A lot of people, especially Americans in the conservative area who are like in the MAGA kind of movement, it's that if I admit to the fact that I know this is wrong, I'm then compromising everything else I've been saying. It means the woke lefties win, if that makes sense.
I mean, I can see the angle that you're coming from. Yeah,
I wish I had a better way of describing it.
Well, what you need is a whiteboard and a marker pen, and then just start scribbling random crap down, and then just linking it together. The thing is, human nature is. People do this all the time. They try and apply logic to human nature, and human nature is inherently fucking hell. What's that word, please? Help.
Contradictory.
Thank you. Human nature is inherently contradictory. I mean, people will hold two different positions that completely contradict each other and not even be aware that that's what they're doing. It's just humans. It's just what we're like. Before we continue this, I'm going to say we are at the 3-hour mark. Dylan, you said you had limited time. Are you?
Yeah, man. I don't know if I'm. I don't think I can do this for much longer. I should get some sleep before I stream. I got to stream in like 2 hours.
Yeah, you do. You need sleep, buddy.
I do. Need
and
sleep.
and anyway, Falcon has disappeared. So I suppose we should. Holy shit! I am half a liter of vodka down. Can you believe that? Wow.
I can.
I'm on my second bottle of wine.
Oh my god! Like, I apologize, Dylan. We had so much bigger stuff planned, but as we warned you, this podcast tends to just go.
It's okay. No worries. I got to talk about some of the things I wanted to talk about, like the demining and stuff like that. I love to ramble about demining. I can do it for a while.
There's the one thing I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, I will admit, I am trying to put myself out there more. I'm putting myself on more streams. I've got a lot of friends who are VTubers. I do stuff with Animarchy. I do stuff with friends all the time. I appear on streams. I'm trying to get better at being live, but as you've probably now guessed and seen for yourself, I'm not very good at it.
You should come on my stream more often, you dork.
Hey, I think you're pretty decent. Obviously, there's a huge difference between doing scripted content and doing live content. It's interesting for me because I've had to do a reversal where I did live content and I'm really comfortable doing live content, but the scripted content's hard for me. It's hard to make it sound natural. It's hard trying to script the line and like actually read it out. Even I could much easier doing stuff off the cuff. Whereas I know a lot of content creators who do like video essay and stuff like that. They have the exact opposite problem where they're trying to break into live stream content, and for them it's extremely difficult. So we're yin and yang right now.
Hey guys, you want to know what's really good? What? There is some continuity in our lives. You know why?
Why is that?
It's been what? 18 to 24 hours since the Ukrainian counteroffensive started. About that. Give or take a bit. Maybe 36.
Give or take, yeah.
Maybe a bit more. 28 hours, shall we call it, right? 28 hours, because it's almost 5 a.m. Oh, no, it's actually almost 6 a.m., excuse me. All is right with the world. things are normal because our good friend Alex over at History Legends has already proclaimed that the counteroffensive is a disaster and Ukraine has failed.
Well,
guess we better pack it up, boys.
Well, I guess nobody needs to watch anymore. I guess the Russians can, they can just start dismantling all the defensive positions. I hope they start doing that. I hope they're all History Legends fans.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it must have been Christmas on his channel when Bakhmut finally fell, right? Like, he's been saying it would fall for like 6 months, and then it finally happens. Like, oh my...
Yeah, we never mentioned that. Bakhmut finally fell. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done, Russia. You finally took the one tiny town Bakhmut. It took you 10 months, but you finally did it.
I mean, we all know when Putin launched this invasion on February 24th, in the front of his mind was, God, I hope I can capture Bakhmut.
Yeah. I mean, it is a fortress city. It is the linchpin to the entire Ukrainian defense plan. Everything goes through Bakhmut.
Now that Russia has Bakhmut, the entire American nuclear doctrine has been upended from its very core.
It's completely gone, and everything was concentrating on Bakhmut. That was. You mean you saw it during the Cold War and everything? It wasn't the Fulda Gap; it was the Bakhmut Gap.
Yeah, that's right. 100%.
Mr. Gorbachev, give us Bakhmut.
I think that's a good point to end. I think Mr. Gorbachev, give us Bakhmut. Do you have? Well, seeing as we're here, Dylan, commence plugging.
Oh, sure. If you want to see my live stream content, you can go to my website, dylanburns.tv. I try to stream every weekday from 6 p.m. to midnight, but obviously with me being in a war zone, like that schedule can be somewhat hectic. You can also find me on Twitch, Dylan Burns TV on Twitch. There's also Dylan Burns TV on YouTube. That's for my main channel, like, big journalistic content type projects. My second channel for live stream content, this type of content, shooting the shit content, that's Dylan Burns Live on YouTube. And, of course, Dylan Burns 1776 on Twitter and Dylan Burns TV on Instagram. There we go. There's the full professional plug that my editor is going to be very happy with.
Well done.
And thank you to our official partners in the Ukrainian media. Sorry.
We deeply apologize.
We deeply apologize.
Said yes.
Oh, well, look. All I'm saying is, as one of NAFO's chief propagandists, I literally make propaganda videos for Ukraine. Their chief propagandist used to be a tanky. I think that counts as a win.
Yeah, but hey, we're now officially Ukrainian propaganda.
Yeah, we are.
We are
officially.
We've finally done it.
We've got our badges and everything.
Time to let that sweet NATO paycheck finally roll in, boys.
Oh, come on, Laser Pig. You can't whinge about that. Think about it this way. As I said, I'm filthy lefty scum. I was a member of the old Antifa back in the day. I'm still waiting for my George Soros check. I haven't got mine yet.
Okay. Just before we leave this, just before we quit, I will, just for everybody here, I will go over everything that I have received by being a show for NATO and Ukraine. All the freebies, all the money, all the gifts, everything I've been given. Okay?
Okay.
I have received one free patch from NAFO. That's it.
Yeah, as I said, I'm still waiting on my check from George Soros.
Boy.
Like and subscribe, chat.